What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Even Your Dynasty show. I've got Ryan joining me today.
Hey.
Going on, man? Welcome. All right, looks like we're going to have a few people start filtering in here, but welcome. If you're following on YouTube, Even Your Dynasty show, appreciate it. If you're listening to this tomorrow, probably whenever I get it published or added to Spotify, welcome. I always recommend come over to the YouTube one. It's a little better experience, I think, on the whole. But yeah, welcome everybody. Giants took 2 today from Colorado. They've now won the first 3 of the series. They're 52-55 on the season. They are still 4.5 back of the third wild card. They have one more game against Colorado tomorrow. We will see how that goes. It is also the last game that is going to take place prior to the deadline. They have a day off tomorrow Monday. And then the deadline actually passes before they play the first game of the series against Oakland. So they're going to know exactly where they stand pretty much coming up onto the deadline. And, the players have kind of tried to make it interesting or make it a decision, even though I know it doesn't really change how I feel about the team. If they sweep the Rockies suck. It kind of is.
No, for real.
So, yeah. So what were your thoughts? Yeah.
No,
so we'll talk a little about the game first, and then I'll get your thoughts on the game first, and then we'll kind of talk about where they stand.
No, I thought it was really a good pitching performance overall. I think obviously we scored enough. It wasn't a bad offensive day, but it was really good to see Snell. I think finally get his rhythm. I mean, we kind of been waiting for it all year. I know, especially you've been saying we'll see if he gets it. He's a second half pitcher, and it seems like he really is a second half pitcher. And now, actually, watching him pitch the whole season, before it's like you got to really believe it to see it, I guess. And yeah, he's been legit. So it was pretty insane today. I mean, I don't think I've seen. Who I was talking about with my room. I don't think I've seen anyone pitch like that in years. Maybe Tim Lincecum, maybe that. Besides that, and I think he was the last pitcher, to have 15 strikeouts was Tim Lincecum. So that
I've seen it a few times with the Giants. I remember Schmidt doing it in a game.
Yeah,
Timmy.
So,
yeah,
that was pretty absurd. He was his stuff was nasty. He was getting people to swing at stuff in the dirt. High fastballs. He was he was using his entire arsenal. It was pretty crazy. And that curveball is literally insane. Like he's got. I don't know if it's as good as Kershaw's, but it's definitely one of the crazier ones I've seen when it's right. It just drops so much, and it gets people swinging at stuff, and it really gets off balance, swings. So it's when he's on, he's pretty fun to watch. So that was really cool. And then, to finish up with game one, it was good to see, Chapman. He's keeping it hot, and he's when he's hot, he's hot. So let's it'd be nice to see how this goes with him. And then Solaire's been playing really well, so that's been good. And I guess that's kind of. I'll see what else do you have to say about the first game.
Yeah, the first game. I mean, Snell's obviously the big story. That's now 24 innings in his last 4 starts, and he's given up 2 runs.
Yeah.
It's just that's
it's pretty absurd.
0.07 ERA or something like that. I'm just doing the math off my head.
Yeah,
it's insane. Like you said, it's just kind of absurd. It's crazy what he's doing. He continues to pitch like that. It's going to be an easy decision for him to opt out because regardless of what people look at the the big numbers, or whatever the ERA ends up looking like at the end of the year for him, because he did have that rough start, and then he's not going to have all the innings and some injuries and all that. But the reality is like if he just looks like that for the last 12 starts of the season, like it doesn't matter. Like the guy's going to opt out. He's going to get at least, at worst, another pillow contract, which is just another year of security for him on $30-something million. So he's not going to lose anything out of it. But I mean it's crazy. It's one of the better runs I think we've seen from a pitcher for the Giants, like for a series of starts.
Yeah.
and he's getting through 6. Like that's the big thing for me because
Yeah.
I think he threw 5 the first inning
And
of
his
these
walks
4
haven't been
starts.
that crazy. There's been a couple, 2.
Yeah.
One game he had none when he was on that perfect game watch, but
Yeah.
it's they've been low. They've all been like,
Mhm.
because sometimes it can be like 4 or 5, even on the Padres last year when he was during his Cy Young campaign, it was a lot of time there was like high stress. It's like the Blake Snell experience, and it hasn't been any of that really. He's been maintaining control of the innings and keeping pitch count pretty down.
Well, and for a guy like him, like the pitch count is always going to be a little bit higher. Just because when you have such swing and miss stuff, like you're naturally, even without the walks, like you're naturally going to throw more pitches because you're striking a ton of guys out. So you're not
he
getting
doesn't give in to guys either. I know that, and he talks about that too. Like he'd rather walk you than give something like have you get a big hit or a home run.
Leave a fat one.
Yeah, no, exactly. He's talked about that because I don't know if you've ever watched his like social media stuff, but anyways, he's mentioned that before that he'd rather walk a guy, and you can tell by his pitch style that he'd rather throw more pitches, walk someone, and then pitch around the next guy. You know what I mean, and then strike him out.
Which it's almost to a fault because early in the year it was like he would have 90 pitches through 4 innings or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was walking guys all over the place, and it's like. Blake, you have 4 pitches that can make guys swing and miss. Like, just put it in the zone.
And beginning of the season, he was doing that too much. You could tell, exactly.
I think your mic might have.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I was just covering my bad. So I think at the beginning of the season he was nibbling a lot, which was really not good for him. And I think especially when you are I think he was a little hurt. I'm not trying to make excuses for him. He was really bad at the beginning of the season, but I do think he was a little hurt. I mean, he went on the IL, 3 times? Or was it 2 times? It was 2 or 3 times.
It was at least 2. It might have been.
Yeah, I know it was at least 2 times. And he, I do think it seems like and I'm not saying that, I do think it's his fault for not being prepared. Like him and Boris, I'm in this, in the camp where I think that they shouldn't have been holding out. And, I think that kind of strategy Boris is doing. I think it was kind of nice to see that all the teams I think they colluded in a way to because it was with all of his free agents. It wasn't just, I think the only one who got signed pretty quickly was Bellinger. You know what I mean? Besides that, and that's because he stayed with the Cubs. Everyone else, it was Chapman, all these guys, there was like a holdout for all of them. And I think that kind of screwed Snell, and we've seen with Montgomery, he's like one of the worst pitchers in the league this year. And it's nice to see that Snell's bounced back. And I do think, I think what, he said may have been true, that he really just needed his spring training and to get healthy before he was going to be able to, pitch well.
I think it's pretty clear that they mishandled how to deal with him at the beginning of the season. Yeah. And kind of on everyone's end, I mean, clearly holding out it was obviously not the right choice, but as late as he did, but also the Giants should have just sent him down to Sacramento and basically let him or San Jose, Sacramento, and just let him have essentially his spring training.
Yep.
And build up. And maybe he doesn't, maybe he wouldn't have picked up a baseball or he wouldn't have taken the rubber in Oracle till May. But it would have been, he would have had time to get built up ready. And it just the way they handled it,
I think they were really excited about the year.
But hindsight,
he was like their big name, and I think they really wanted him to pitch and make the fan I think really what we've seen about this organization is they really care about selling seats, and they really sold. They're like, oh, we got big, because he is a star. He is a big name for sure. Say what you want about Snell, he's the biggest star on our team for sure. I think, him
100%.
Yeah, him, and then, Chapman, just because not that Chapman's a big MLB star, but in the Bay Area, he's well known because, he was on the A's and anyways.
Hey, he's got some hardware. So
yeah, exactly. And he's a legit player for sure. I was in the chat yesterday and I was not, super hyped on Chapman, but I do think he's a good all-around hitter. I just don't
like his good player.
At bats with runners on base. It was specifically what I was talking about. I think he's a really good player though. But so that was really good to see. And I think what's good too for the Giants is if they decide they want to sell, you've been talking about, we've talked about on Twitter, is that he's made it really easy for them because he's not going to pitch before the trade deadline again. And he's just had his best stretch and probably ever. I think, I'd have to look if he's had, I don't think he's ever had a 3-game stretch like that before.
I mean, last season, the whole
was
second
pretty crazy,
half,
yeah.
it was like a 1.70 ERA, or something like that.
Yeah,
it was still insane, but
I know
he's like 0.7.
I know before this game they had his stats up, like it was post-injury and pre-injury. ESPN was talking about, and like his ERA post-injury was 0.97, and pre-injury it was like crazy high, like 7 or whatever. And I think with him, I think what you were talking about with him probably going to opt out anyways. I think a lot of teams are just going to look at that. They're literally just going to be like, oh, after he, came back, and they're probably going to eat up the excuse that he was injured. You know what I mean? And I think if the Giants want to, I think right now it'd be a good time to move him. And if you want, you can always sign, I don't know if I necessarily would, but you could always sign him back. Same kind of thing I've thought with Chapman. And a lot of teams do this. This has happened to the Giants a lot of times, where, they'll trade for a player and then they'll end up going back to the original team. Like Andrew McCutchen, and not right away, but a couple years later went to the Pirates, and now they have our perennial all-star in Brian Reynolds. So it's like you can always that's what's good about these opt-out guys. If you really do think they're a part of your future, just a little behind-the-scenes talk, like, hey, you can come back. You know what I mean? Just like we've seen this happen.
They're gonna follow money. Like Chapman is gonna follow the money. Like that's to me, like that's the reality. And you know what? If another team, because even if he opts out this season and he's never really all the way to the end of the season,
he's never really gotten paid, right?
No, yeah, exactly. So he got offered his $150 million contract from the A's of all teams, but it was like a 10-year deal, so it would been like 15 a year. Yeah, and he bet on himself that he's gonna make more than that. And I think over the last 3 years he has made more than that, but he hasn't like gotten the big long-term deal to basically cool, I've made up the money that I could have theoretically got in Oakland. But I don't blame him for leaving. I mean, number one, I think it was a good bet that he'd be worth more than that yearly, but also like part of the reason he didn't sign it was because he didn't have faith that the A's were going to put a winning team around him. So he was like, no, dude, I don't want to be part of that. So, and I don't blame anybody in Oakland for being like, no, that's not happening. So, but I mean, even if he stays here all the way to the end of the season, like if he opts out, which he's playing well enough right now, I mean, for those of you that like the WAR statistic, it's not my favorite, but like for Baseball Reference WAR, he's worth like 4.2 WAR or something right now with 50 games to play. I mean, he's having a great season. He's having a season about in line with what he normally does. Like his production is about what it is. So he's playing well enough to opt out. And I feel like at worst, he would sign another deal similar to what he has now, where it's, $18 to $20 million a year for 3 years with opt-outs, but that still adds a year of security for him. So again, unless he gets hurt, he's going to opt out is kind of how I'm viewing it.
So no, I think so too. I mean, everyone's saying he's not going to get paid more money, and I disagree. I think he will. I mean, if I recall, it was a $49 million deal, right? It's about 16 a year.
It was 3 for 54. It was 18.
Okay, so it's 18 a year. Yeah, he's going to get. Yeah. I think someone would, in my opinion, I'm not the contract expert, but just based on his play and contracts around the league, I think he would at least get a 3 for 60, like something like that. I think that's totally in the realm. I also think last offseason and what other general managers talked about, there was there was not many teams really spending. It was like 4 teams spending, which did include the Giants. They didn't spend it, as how I would have spent the money. But anyways. But so there wasn't so much action going on. I do think there'll be more interest this year for him.
Yeah, and the only other top of the, I know Cam brought it up yesterday. The only other top of the, top end third baseman that's gonna be on the market is
his position's
so it's now. For anyone that needs a third baseman, like it's there, he's there, And even if you keep him with the Giants, like he's not giving the Giants a discount, like that. So that's the other part. If you keep him, he's still going. It's a Boris client. He's still going to follow the money. So if you really want to re-sign him, you're going to have to pay him the money anyway. So you can get something for him if you feel like
and then bring him back.
and then attempt to sign him again. If you don't, if Casey Schmidt doesn't play well, which
pan out,
two hole at bats yesterday. I'm not going to sit here and be like, see, I told everyone, but two whopping at bats. But in that second at bat, all I'm going to say, in the second at bat, the one where Casey Schmidt hit the triple, he laid off a couple pitches. He fought off a couple pitches. That is exactly how he has looked in Sacramento this season. Now, can he maintain that and sustain that, the quality at bats the rest of the way for 55 games or whatever that's left in the season?
Well,
I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but it's like, could he? Who knows? And I just think it's worth finding out, because if he did, then all of a sudden you look at Chapman and you're like, dude, we're not going to pay this guy $20 million when we got Casey Schmidt making $800,000 and showing that he's, a player for the future. So that's just kind of where I stand on that.
Yeah.
I'm going to address some of these.
Oh, yeah, no, all good. Then just real quick with the Chapman thing, and then I'll be done with it. I do think what you said, too, you really should see what you got with Casey. I think he's shown stretches, and he's definitely not a bad defender. He's really good at third baseman, and I think he's been all right at shortstop. I'm not going to, sit here.
I hate that they move him around.
Huh?
I hate that they move him around.
No, I hate really that too. But my point is I liked him last year. I really thought for a stretch there, I thought he might win Rookie of the Year. Like, I literally did.
Oh yeah, those first 2 weeks.
It was like super hot, and MLB was posting him, and they were like, he was like up there in the odds. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
He got up there. He was like not the favorite, but he got into like top 5. He was really, really hot. And then it's crazy because anyways.
Yeah. We're gonna, because Rob and Rules here, they put kind of similar things. Rules is saying would be shy to sell after the last 3 games. What about Farhan? And then Rob, it was the Rockies, but it was the Rockies in Denver too, where we barely won 1 game. Coors Field is a house of horrors. I hate that place.
Yeah.
It's definite home field advantage for the Rockies, even when they stink. They always have a good offense, and it's probably going to get better in a few years when Charlie Condon is there and hitting about 60 home runs in Coors. But barely 1 game out of the break, and we all decided the only path forward is sell. Between the two of those comments, put this back up. But between the two of those comments, it wouldn't shock me. Like, I actually was texting Dan over on NorCal earlier today, where I said, I was like, just watch. The Giants are going to sweep the Rockies, who stink, and then Farhan's going to buy. They're going to go, see, our rotation's good. We won 4 in a row, and they're going to make some excuse to buy. And it's like, guys, it's the Rockies in San Francisco, where every year you play them 6 or 7 times and you win like 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, we own the
out
Rockies.
Of the 7. Giants own them in San Francisco. This is nothing new.
Yeah,
the Rockies are gone off on the road.
We had a streak like a couple. I mean, it was last year, but anyways, it's the Rockies have. It's been a long time since they've won. Won a season series against the Giants. Not like a series in the season, but yeah.
But yeah, even specifically just in San Francisco, they always.
Didn't we have a streak of like 20 games for a while or something like that? It was like 26 last season or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It was they beat them a lot. That's all I know.
It got pretty crazy.
It's just, but yeah. So it's like I can't take it. It kind of is what it is.
I do think the pitching. I don't know. Don't you think the pitching is better though? Because you said
100%.
Okay, all right. So you do agree 100%. With that analysis? You just wouldn't buy.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, the whole point was the Giants need. Everybody brought up the argument that tread water and stay afloat until the pitching gets healthy. They didn't succeed. Like, we didn't. Like, they flat out they didn't. If they were 2 or 3 games over 500 when the pitching came back, coming up into this little stretch that they just had, and I mean they're 5-5 in the stretch, but since the All-Star break, or post All-Star break, they're 5-5. But like if they had gotten the pitching healthy and they were 3 or 4 games over 500 prior to that, then they could have gone on a run, and we would they'd only be like 2 games out, and we might be talking about this a little differently. But they were 6 games under. Like it is what it is, and yes, they've won 3 in a row. The team has not done anything to tell me in 108 games now, or 107 games in the season. They've done nothing to tell me that they can build and sustain momentum.
107, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't have faith in them that they can do that. And I would love to be wrong. I would love nothing more to sit there and eat crow in October because they made the playoffs, but it's like I don't see that happening.
I think I think there's a lot of teams ahead of us now too, and I think I don't know if we had have been a couple games over 500. I would have say even if we were just a couple games under, but we're still even now we're still 3 games under 500. So it's like going I think we went all the way to 6 games under 500. That's a big difference between in baseball. It's a big difference than being 1 game under 500. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's just, we'll see. I mean, I can't sit here and say I have the correct answer because the reality is, the Diamondbacks made the playoffs at 84 wins last season and went to the World Series. So I 100% understand where people come from, where they're like, we don't want to throw away any seasons. Our pitching staff is, could potentially be elite if you could just get there. It's just, I don't know about getting there.
If you were gonna buy, who would you get? Like if you were Farhan, and not Farhan, but it basically if Farhan's telling you we are buying someone, who would you get? Like if you were Farhan and you're trying to be aggressive here and make the push.
The hard part is like how many people are honestly out there right now to buy? Unless you're gonna just take a massive swing for the fence and you're gonna try and go get Vladdy, who
I would say Vlad or someone like that.
Yeah, Bo. Who's struggling, but I've always felt is a change of scenery guy.
Yeah, me too.
And
it seems like
or like Luis Robert. What you trade for Luis Robert like that? That would have to be your like big swing.
Yeah.
I don't know what's really out there. That is truly available now. Jazz Chisholm just got traded to the Yankees.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wasn't a big fan of Jazz. Like, about that.
Did you see what they gave? Because when I saw it on ESPN and I saw the stuff on it, I didn't see what they gave up for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you go off like MLB Pipeline, it doesn't look like they gave up that much. But I know MLB Pipeline doesn't update their
rankings at all. Birdsong's super low on there.
So, and my understanding is a few of the guys are playing pretty well and are probably going to be way higher ranked by next season. But
gotcha.
I mean, it didn't sound like some ridiculous package. I don't even think they had a top 100 guy in the package, which is kind of absurd. But I'd have to double check it. I kind of just heard that. I didn't dig too much into that one.
I mean, it would take more to get a Vladdy or a Bo, though, right? I mean, for sure. I mean, even though Bo's struggling, I think his career is a lot more impressive than Jazz.
I think you have to give a top 100.
I'm with you for sure. I mean, but I would give Luciano for Bo, and if I were Farhan and I was like, okay, I have to buy, I don't want to get fired next year, I would get Bo just because I think Bo is a change of scenery guy, and for me, I'm a guy where it's like if you've hit 300 for more than 5 seasons, I think it's either 4 or 5 seasons. Bo had about 300. It was 298. In his career, he's still even after the terrible season, he's still at like 290. I think you take a swing on a guy like that because, Posey had bad years. You've had, Trout had bad years. You had Judge has had bad. Soto last year hit 250. You know what I mean? And Soto's now, it's, obviously hitter-friendly park, but certain times you're not always going to hit 300, I think. And I don't think he's, like, fallen off. I know, remember Eric on NorCal was saying that like he thought that Bo was a huge, a huge swing and like not a huge swing. It could be a huge risk. I don't think so because I think Bo, next, even if he has a bad entire this season, I think he will get in the lab and I think he'll come back next year like super good.
Yeah, I mean, it is a risk. So the way I'll look at it is, it's always a risk, but the risk is for Bo is because to me, you don't make that trade unless you intend to sign and like extend him. Like you're gonna hand him just a massive contract, which let's be real, like he's not gonna put his name on the line unless it's like 200 million or more, because he would rather bet. I would be willing to bet that he would rather bet on himself for 1 more year and then hit free agency and bet on himself having a good year than sit there and try and sign some safe contract coming off of a horrible season. So I still think you have to give him, you'd have to give him some big money. the thing, and I like what Frederick says here. He's like, I feel like Bo is a 2025 play. And I've actually used this as a reason to do it because I wanted to do a buy/sell kind of deadline for a while where it's like you go get a guy like Bo that can help you next season and beyond. And maybe he helps you this season. Maybe he would help you make a run. But you're mainly making the move for next season and beyond. And then you sell off a couple of veterans still.
Yeah.
So I agree with Frederick there. Like, I think it's a move that would help you next season. I do understand, like, right now we have Tyler Fitzgerald, who's hit 8 home runs in 10 games. Like, he's on some absurd run, and he looks smooth at shortstop. So I mean, I give him credit there, but
who was it? Was it on your show? Someone was saying, because I haven't watched that many shows in the last 2 days. I only watched 2, so I don't know if it's yours or not. But someone was saying he kind of reminds them of Trey Turner. And I low-key think that's, like, not a bad just with the power. Like, he's got, like, that speed and power aspect. And obviously he's not, like, as good as Trey Turner.
Skinny dude with power, I can see.
But he kind of reminds me of Trey Turner. Like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, dude, he kind of is like Trey Turner. Yeah. And he's got, like, crazy power for, like, his build. You wouldn't, like, when he hits, I don't know how to put this into words, but when he hits, like, lines, really, really high velo home runs, like, they come off those bats, like, going, like, 100, like, they're crazy. It's insane. Yeah. They're not like a cheapie, he's got legitimate power.
Yeah. Frederick, he's talking about Fitzgerald. Because we mentioned Fitzgerald as, like, how he's playing good shortstop right now. So, like, if you go get a Bichette. Now, what I would say about Fitzgerald is I love the fact that you can play him all over the place. He can play 7 positions.
You put him in the outfield?
Yeah, he's played center field. You could probably, if he's played center, he could just as easily play, one of the corners. He's a guy that, they always talk about, like, to best maximize your power. They talk about, being able to tap into the pull power. Yeah. And I don't think it's necessary for every player. There's always exceptions. Guys like Elliot Ramos, guys like Elliot Ramos, JD Martinez, guys that play a lot of power to center field to right the opposite.
Yeah.
You can have a ton of success. And those guys, I'm not up there going, hey, you're not pulling the ball enough. Like, no, dude, if Elliot Ramos is going to be a 25 plus home run player a season, I'm not going to sit there and get on him for not pulling it enough.
Yeah.
Like, just let his power play how it plays. But Fitzgerald is kind of, the poster child for the opposite way.
Yeah.
You can, a guy that really has tapped into it, and he's kind of maximizing his power potential because of his ability to pull fly balls. And he's always been a bit streaky, but he's been a 20. I know you asked me earlier. You messaged me about it. Yeah, he's had he had a week in Sacramento this season where he hit 6 homers. Now it was
I remember in
Salt Lake City or something like that.
You were saying to pull him up. I remember I was literally walking my dog and I was listening to probably like pull him up, and I was like, I don't know why Slater. I was saying to myself, why Slater is up here and they won't play Fitzgerald. And it's crazy. Now he's doing it in the big league, and it really shows like Farhan. Yeah. It's kind of been late to pull a lot of these guys up.
I'll jump back to yours, Frederick. Definitely Fitz this week. I mean, anytime you can hit
insane.
7.
This is crazy. He has 9 home runs. He almost has as many home runs as Conforto and Soler, who are supposed to be like our power hitters. You know what I mean? I mean, what is Soler at 12, right?
Yeah.
He might pass. Honestly, I would not be shocked if he ends up if they play Fitzgerald every day. I would not be shocked to see Fitzgerald pass Soler in home runs for the season.
Not at all.
I would not be shocked at all. I mean, because he's on a crazy. He doesn't even have to keep this pace up. He just needs to hit like 5 more this year. Because Soler's probably gonna have 14 only. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, Soler's one of those guys. He can have one of these.
Yeah, he got 5 in a week.
He'll a bunch. Now, what I would say is anytime
Fitzgerald can too.
Yeah. Anytime you put your name on a record next to on a Giants record next to Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, he's also on the MLB record. If he would have hit one more home run that day, he would have been the MLB. He was tied for the MLB record. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No rookie had ever hit 6 straight games. But yeah, anytime you do something that the only other guy that's done it is Barry Bonds, it's like, yep, that's a good week.
Yeah.
So,
you think he's gonna get player of the week, right?
I don't know how you couldn't.
Has there been anyone else who's been going crazy?
I mean, Otani's hit a couple home runs, so I mean, you never know with Major League Baseball, but
but they've been posting Fitzgerald. They know what's going on with him. They've been so I think he might get it just because they're aware it's not going to be a situation where they're not paying attention.
Yeah, I'm kind of jumping around on a few of these. I'm going to
go back. Did you expect him to hit another one today?
Who, Fitz?
Yeah, that was my last question on that. I was shocked when I saw it. I was literally shocked. I was like, "Is this real?" I messaged you on Twitter. I was like, "Is this real?"
The bats were kind of trending a little down. And he had a couple strikeouts. I know Frederick kind of mentioned that he's got swing and miss, and he definitely does. Like he does have some swing and miss. That's always part of his game. I think the best if Fitzgerald ends up being kind of what we hope. I would hope that he can get the strikeout percentage down closer to 25% and keep the walk percentage around 10 or higher, which he's done a good job of between AAA and here. I mean, his strikeout rate in AAA last season was better. This season it was like 27 and change. And it's, he's 27, 28, I believe, last I checked in San Francisco right now. If he can get that down to around 25, and I think he could push 20 homers and be a 30-plus stolen base guy. And if you look at WRC plus and stuff like that, he might only be 10, 15% above league average.
Okay,
at the end of the day when you look at it.
That's fine.
But, if you get that.
A lot of utility.
Yeah, and the fact that you can move him all over. Like, he's a valuable piece. And he's an inexpensive, valuable piece. He has 6 years of control after this.
Wow.
Still. So he's not a free agent. I mean, he's going to be 27 next season.
Yeah, I was about to say he's an old rookie, right?
Yeah, but he's going right into his prime. He'll be 27. He's going into there's nothing wrong with that. Like, give me 6 years of a cheap player.
We've hit on a couple of those older guys. I mean, we've hit on a couple of those older guys in the past. I mean, Vogelsong was one of my favorite Giants. He was an older guy coming up.
Yeah. So I'm going to go. Frederick has 2 comments. He said Bo profiles a lot like some crazy collapse players. I'll add this one. The Bo profile is concerning. He has one elite tool, which is really his hit tool.
Frederick,
for anybody wondering, mid speed, mid to bad defense, doesn't hit for power, even though the max EV is like it's fine, chases a ton. Okay, I would push back a little bit on the power in general of his career. This season, 100% dead on. Like he's not hitting for any power.
He had 28 home runs the last 2 years, right?
He had like low to mid 20s. I think it was like 20 to 24. But my big thing is he also hits a ton of doubles. So it's not like I think power.
I actually want to pull up his stats.
Home runs. Yeah, if you pull it up, let me know. But my thing with Bo, and I definitely understand what Frederick's saying here. Like the hard hit rates are down. The max exit velocity is down. His overall exit velocity is down a little bit. Although if you look at like what he's done year in and year out in his career, it's not like so atrociously down that I'm like super concerned. Bad barrel rates. Yeah, that's probably accurate. At least this season. I think in past seasons he's had a couple of years where it's been decent. But yeah, like my thing with Bo is if you look at his, I'm going to just say the spray chart, like where he sprays the ball, pull, up the middle, opposite field, and his line drive, ground ball, fly ball rates. A lot of that stuff is somewhat comparable to past seasons. Like they're pretty close. At least it was. I haven't looked at it in the last 2 weeks. It was a few weeks ago. I know he's been kind of injured a little bit. So what that tells me is a lot of the same things are there. Like he's doing a lot of similar things that he's done in the past. And I feel like some adjustments, if he makes a few adjustments, I don't know if something's going on mechanically with him. I don't know what's going on. If it's something mentally with him, who knows? But I do like that does give me hope that it's something that he can dig himself out of and figure it out. And I'm willing to bet on a guy that's hit between 290 and 311 every season in his career prior to this one. I have faith. That's a lot of track record for a guy. Most guys don't just forget how to hit overnight. And he definitely chases a ton. That's something he would have to improve. But, the bat to ball skills are elite. He typically does a good job of, launch angle sweet spot from 90th percentile to 25 or 25th appears to be the biggest change. Yeah, exactly. And I think his hard hit rate is down a little bit as well. I think he's making more like medium contact. Last time I looked, that's what I saw.
I haven't looked at his baseball savant page at all. I should. I've only have time to look at all the Giants guys, and then I get really disappointed. The best one is Flores.
Just don't look at Flores unless you want to laugh. I mean, I think it's hilarious.
I know. I like to look at it and laugh.
It's sad, but it's also hilarious.
It just doesn't even track his bat speed. It's insane.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. Like, it really is going to have to be right. I do think if you're going to extend him, it's going to be longer than you want. Mm-hmm. But it's like we said,
he's 26.
Yeah, he's 26.
Nice.
Like, it's one of those you're betting on him figuring it out, because if he's right, he's one of the best number 2 hitters in the league, in my opinion.
And he's led. I'm looking at his stats right now. He's led the league in in the AL. He led the league in total hits twice. Last season he was 3rd, and then he hit 306 last year, 290, 298, 301, 311. I mean, it's a pretty good track record. It was 5 seasons, not 4. I thought it was 5. It was 5 seasons of hitting 290 and above. I mean, it's really Yeah, I think it's an outlier. I mean, someone that is that elite doesn't all of a sudden, just fall off in the MLB. He's not
typically.
Yeah, this would be a crazy, one of those players. Like, what happened to them? What study the. And it's not an injury. Yeah. Usually, people have those types of fall offs. It's like an injury related thing.
It's either
like
injury
Ryan
or
Howard
age.
Had a crazy fall off. Do you remember Ryan Howard? Like on the Phillies, he was insane for a few years.
But he was also a guy that struck out a ton.
Yeah, he was even way more than Bo.
Yeah.
I like
that.
That's funny.
Yeah, I would say the other guy I always think of when you talk about a guy that had an insane few years and then fell off is Travis Hafner. That dude was so good for the Indians, and then all of a sudden he just fell off a cliff. He was one of the best hitters in the American League.
Who also would have made the Hall of Fame, and it's really sad, is Pedroia. And then he got, who was it, Machado? Who was the one who injured and ruined his career? I forget. I forget what happened, but Dustin Pedroia, it was another injury thing, but anyways.
Yeah. That's probably why they changed the rules around second base.
Yeah, that's why it got changed, was because it was messed up.
But so it's a risk though, because you're going to give up somebody good, and let's say you give up a Marco Luciano or Carson Wisenhunt. There's risk on all sides. If Bo Bichette goes back to what he was, which was a 5-WAR player, basically, if he goes back to that, you don't really care what you gave up. I think you just live with it. Whatever, even if Marco or Carson or one of these guys, even if one of these guys ends up being everything you would have hoped they would be, you still look at it whatever. We got a 26-year-old shortstop that's going to hold it down and absolutely rakes. And I feel his game is built well for Oracle because he does use the entire field. He does hit a lot of line drives, and he's not power dependent. Yeah. So I that's where I think he plays well in Oracle. Yes, but I would love if he was faster, but his speed, it isn't. He moves fine. He does hit a lot of extra base hits. He gets on it. So I don't really view that as an issue. But of course, Frederick, if he was going back to being a 5-WAR player, you pay him as such. And that's just fine, because it's kind of the bird in the hand thing. You're not relying on some prospect to become what you hope, when more than likely they're not. Now, the risk for me is you get him, you pay him, and then, one of these guys ends up being elite and Bichette just doesn't recover. That's the risk. Yeah. So,
the one thing I'll say is maybe I wouldn't give up a Luciano, and maybe he would have to be in the deal. I'm not really sure what the Blue Jays would want, because this is, again, it's kind of speculation. But I would, for pitching for me, I'm not, opposed to giving up a Wisenhunt, because thing you see with Birdsong and Harrison, you probably have, two possible aces. And definitely a good 1-2 punch. And for me, I'm at the point where that's why I said earlier, I'm okay with moving a Snell, or even, hot take, but even a Logan Webb for the right price, just because I think, the Giants, even within the Farhan Zaidi tenure, have shown they have no problem developing starting pitching and, bullpen arms, and they can sign pitchers whenever they feel like it. I mean, we got Gosman, we got Rodon, we signed Snell this time. We've had no problem getting relievers, Jordan Hicks, the Rogers, anybody. The people want to pitch here because they know it's a pitcher friendly park. So I don't think I'm not opposed to moving some arms and then maybe not Luciana but a lower end hitting prospect for a Bo Bichette or for a Vlad or for a Luis Robert, because I think we'll be fine with getting more pitchers, and we really have always had issues developing position players.
Yeah, I mean 100%. I'm always willing to move arms for bats or good bats. This is a difficult place and they have not shown an ability to consistently develop hitting. They have a few that are showing some good things. Ramos, Fitzgerald, Wisely has shown good things. He's kind of slowed down quite a bit, but
good utility player still though.
Yeah, he had a good game today. Hopefully, that's a sign of things to come in the second game. Bailey, obviously, his bat's done nicely this season, so they have hope, but it's not something they've consistently done. And I'm all for getting some premium position player prospects, because even you look through their system, they don't have many up at the upper levels that are like premium prospects.
It's scary. It's low,
for position player groups. Frederick, I get this. Trust me, I get it. I love you. For anyone that watches my minor league videos that I put out every week, I love the farm. I love our prospects.
All the games, don't you?
Yeah. I watched a large amount of minor leagues. I won't sit there and say I see every single game. Like,
you love the kids,
but I go back and I watch. Especially like the top guys. If I wasn't able to watch one of the games, because it is hard, especially the late games. You get Eugene, San Jose, Sacramento, and the Giants all often playing at the same time. Richmond, I see a lot of because they are usually earlier. But yeah, I mean, I'll go back and at least rewatch at bats and stuff like that. That's why I have such strong feelings of how Casey Schmidt has looked in Sacramento, because I go back and I watch especially Sacramento. I watch a lot of those games live, and then I also will, if I miss them because I was watching the Giants game instead, I'll go back and I'll watch Schmidt's at bats, Luciano's at bats, Luis Matos's at bats, see kind of what I'm seeing. Encarnacion has looked really good. He's got a lot of oppo pot power. Speaking of guys like that.
Is he legit? Speaking of him real quick, because we got him from the Mexican League, right?
Yeah. I mean, who knows? He's a guy that's made it to the majors before. He has 3 home runs in the majors.
Okay.
And he's only 26. He struggled in his one opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would give him a look.
You think we'll see him You think we'll see him in the MLB this year? Or will be dependent?
He keeps doing what he's doing. I think he's going to force it.
Okay.
I wouldn't be shocked if you see Derek Hill get DFA'd in a week or two. And
what's up with Derek Hill, man?
I mean, I know
Conforto had a bad game, but them benching Derek Hill the other day after he hit, because Conforto did have that big hit. When was it? It was the Dodgers. It was the Dodgers series, yeah. He had a big RBI, what do you want to call it? A big RBI double against a lefty, and then Soler then also had a big RBI, and then it's the next game they bench him for Derek Hill. He's dude, he must be and that's why I would trade Conforto. I like Conforto, and you know that, but I would trade him just because he's 100% leaving. Because man, they treat him like a dog. He's he shouldn't be paid $18 million, but he's an $18 million player who they just bench whenever they feel like.
I mean, you know how they are. They use the platoons in San Francisco almost excessively, and it just kind of is. But the reality is, when you have platoon players, you're going to platoon them. So,
yep.
Hey, I don't disagree, but you have a guy it's not only to the opposite field. He has opposite field power. I mean, you look at Elliot Ramos. Ramos's field, his power is mainly to center. He does go the other way a lot, but a lot of his home runs come to center field, which in Oracle Park, it's not necessarily ideal, because it is the deeper parts of the yard are obviously to center, left center, and right center in Oracle Park. But when you're hitting him 430, I'm not going to tell the guy to change it. Like, just keep doing what you're doing, man. If you're going to keep hitting it over the wall and not have any issue with it. So, Encarnacion, we'd have to just give him a chance and see what happens. That's the reality.
Yeah.
Frederick or D-Shot asked, so would you rather the Giants sell, buy, or stand pat? Do not stand pat. I'm sick of them standing pat every single season. It's a cop out, and then
do
Farhan,
something.
I do not count last season as doing. Yes, he made a trade last season at the deadline. He got AJ Pollock and Mark Mathias. He might as well have stood pat. They got like a combined 11 at bats. Like, it was a joke. So
that was actually so sad because we were actually good at that point. What were we? They
were like
6 games over
or something 500? Like that.
What'd you say?
They were like 10 games over.
Okay, I thought it was like 8. So either way, though, we were being competitive, and I remember I was talking to my roommate, who's a huge Giants fan, and we were like, we got to make a trade, like we got to get, we were talking about, last year, Soto, and like we were being crazy. We were like, just anybody. Though. We just wanted someone. You know what I mean?
Get someone.
No, because we thought we were competitive, and they do nothing, and the team completely falls on its face, and it's like, dude, I honestly blame us not making the playoffs, specifically on Farhan last year, because he needed to make an aggressive trade. Like, I kind of reminded me, and I'm not saying we were going to win the World Series last year. I definitely don't think so. But in 2010, we had a really bad, or not really bad, but a tough stretch. And then we made these trades. We got like Cody Ross off the waiver wires, and then we picked up a couple players, and that brought a lot of juice. And Cody Ross was not AJ Pollock. Cody Ross was a legitimate MLB player. The only reason he was on the waiver wires is, for people who weren't
selling
watching
money, selling his contract off. The Marlins didn't want to pay him.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with his performance.
And the Giants claimed him just so the Padres couldn't.
And he ended up performing for us, man. He was great. He came through.
Yeah.
But anyway,
but to answer D-Shot's question, my preference is that they sell. I do not believe that this team is really going to go on a big run. I just don't. Now, we've talked about, getting a guy like Bichette, or if you're going to go get some guy that you're making the move every bit as much for next season as you are for this season.
Yes.
I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to trying and going getting a big star that it might not help you get in this season. Maybe it's too little too late for 2024, but it helps you going into next season feel like, okay, we're going to have a really good team. I'm not against that. But that said, like, if it was up to me, there would be a lot of guys changing uniforms in the next couple of days. Like, I would 100% be moving. The guys I would absolutely be moving would be Yaz, whose value will never be higher. Conforto, you may or may not be able to move. We'll see. The Mets just traded for Jesse Winker.
I know. I just saw that, and I was like, damn, we kind of. I was like, damn, we just lost the option. I was, shit.
Conforto picked a hell of a time to go like 6 for 80 or whatever.
I know, he's so cold right now.
So, but I would be moving Yaz for sure. His value is not going to get any higher. It's funny because I've seen some people, and I don't throw people under the bus, but I have seen some reputable. Yaz. I have seen some reputable people talking about how he's so valuable, and that's why they shouldn't trade him. And I'm like, that's the exact reason you do trade him.
No, you have to trade. You have to trade Yaz.
I'm so tired of this.
This is just like 2020 when he was crazy during COVID, and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, Yaz is great." Like, he's like. And, anyways, and he was saying how great, everyone was saying how great he was. And I was like, oh my God. And then, since then he hasn't done much. And now he's having another hot stretch like he had then. Get rid of him. Send him out. And he's cheap. People will pay, maybe not a lot, but they'll send you something.
Yeah. Well, and you look at the contract for him. Like, he's making what, like $8 million this season? And he's arbitration eligible for one more season. But because he's arbitration eligible, the contract is literally a zero risk for a team. They could get him, pay him the $3 million or whatever that he still owed the rest of the season. And if he just stinks and they're like, nope, non-tender him, it doesn't cost you anything. See you, dude. Thanks. So it's like he's a zero risk essentially for another team. And if he's really good and you're like, we need the outfielder and whatever situation, you go give him it's going to probably be like 10 million or so in arbitration. They always go up a little bit. He's probably going to get like 10 million, if I had to guess, in arbitration, maybe 11. So it's not that I'm saying, hey, move Yaz because I think he stinks, or hey, move Yaz because he hasn't been a good Giant or anything. No, obviously he's been a good Giant in his time here. I like the guy. I think he's a great, example for the young players, but also he has value and he's not going to have value forever. So capitalize on that, which the Giants have been terrible at capitalizing on value when they've had guys. Guys like Thairo Estrada last season who had easily his best season of his career. And I understand keeping him, 28 years old, kind of feels like he's on an upward trajectory, but he also, there's a ton of red flags with Thairo. He swings at everything.
Yeah.
Literally everything. That's it thrown in the same.
And the analytics don't like him at all. The advanced numbers don't like him.
And I like the
OPS
defense.
plus hates him. WRC plus hates. If you look at that for his previous years, even though his average was high, those advanced numbers, they really didn't like him much.
Yeah. So I would, Thairo, I like too many of our current middle infielders, and we have a lot of guys down in Sacramento still. I would rather see guys like Schmidt, Fitzgerald, Wisely, all remain up. Luciano's down there. Obviously, they're giving him time, which is fine. But going forward into next season, I would rather just move off Thairo. And I hear people say, "Oh, well, you can't sell him at his lowest." And I get it. You want to sell guys when their value's high, but that ship sailed. We didn't sell him when his value is high, and I don't like hanging on to declining assets. That's just me. I don't like holding on to Wilmer Flores for 4 months, hoping that he can figure it out. I don't. I wanted to move Austin Slater before the season, because why are we doing this? So I'm not one of those people, unless that guy is a superstar and his value stinks, and you're like, I'd rather just see a guy with a lot of pedigree. That's the point where I'm all right, sure, that guy I'll hang on to for a little longer and see if he recovers some value. But I'm not doing that with mid-level guys. And, another guy I would move, Tyler Rogers. Yes, he's not going to get what AJ Puck got necessarily, but, there's a lot of guys that I think if you pulled up a team's top 30 list and you looked in the 12 to 18 range or 12 to 15 range, you could probably get a guy in that area somewhere. And I feel like Tyler Rogers is one of those guys. We've already talked about Chapman. Yes, everybody probably I had half of Giants Twitter coming after me yesterday.
I know,
for that
crazy.
One. I had another bunch of people coming at me for Yaz. I had a bunch of people coming at me for Webb, even though Webb, I made it pretty clear, I felt that I'm not actively shopping him, but it's hey, do I get a king's ransom that with major league ready top prospects? Then yeah, sure, I would have done it, but it's a very specific package. But yeah, I would rather sell. I'd rather move some of these guys. And more importantly, I'd rather clear the way for some of these young players and give them opportunities and figure out what you have internally going into next season before you get to the other season.
Yeah.
So, Snell is an interesting case. Somebody brought him up earlier. It'd be very... listen, as somebody that is not a Farhan fan, and I keep my opinion fluid, where he always has the ability to change how I feel about him. I use Jed York as an example. I thought Jed York was one of the worst, most, useless owners after the way they handled the whole Harbaugh situation and everything like that. And then they went with, the Ron Jeremy twin and Chip Kelly. And it was dude, this guy is just, he doesn't have a clue of what he's doing. And you know what? Then he went, got Kyle Shanahan, got John Lynch, and got himself out of the front. He stopped talking to the media nearly as much, got himself kind of out of the spotlight, and he got the right guys in. So it's I always keep my opinions fluid on these things. And I would give Farhan so much credit.
Yeah,
if they manage to turn around and they flip Snell and Doval as an example. If you offered Snell and Doval to Baltimore, and Baltimore decided that they wanted to push their chips in while they still had Corbin Burns, and they have this big young core because they've struggled to get, struggled to develop pitching. If you offered them Snell and Doval and they said, all right, we'll give you, and you were able to pry Kobe Mayo and Connor Norby from them, something like that, that kind of package. It's if you could flip that, I would do that deal. yesterday.
You wanted Kobe Mayo the whole year. If we got
I've
Kobe
wanted-
Mayo, you'd be
yeah.
happy. So
Yeah, Basayo's really good too. Like,
Yep.
I would be happy with
the
him.
Orioles, they have too
Yeah.
many position players and not enough pitching. I mean,
Yeah.
if we're gonna try to get rid of one of our, actual proven pitchers, I don't really know if they would want a Harrison or a Birdsong necessarily, because I think they're a little bit too young still. But if you want to give them a Doval, a Snell, a Webb for the right price for a haul, I would do it, just because I think one of those guys, you've seen the Orioles. They've proven that they can develop really good position players that can hit, multi-tool, and we have not. And they have, they need pitching. So let's get a couple of those guys. We need a couple more of those. We have a lot of pitching, and we can always. And people forget about this, and this is the only reason I would train Webb, just for a huge haul, which I know will make people mad, is because people forget, we can always re-sign another pitcher of his caliber. No offense to Logan Webb, but I personally, and this is a hot take too, I think, Blake Snell is a better pitcher than Logan Webb. I think he's had a better
You might
career.
want to just stay off Twitter for the next couple days. They're gonna.
I think
the
he's
Wolves
had
are
a
gonna
better
get let out on
career.
you.
I think he's had a better career. He's won 2 Cy Youngs, and I think if you can sign someone like Snell, I think you're gonna have no problem, signing someone better than Webb in the future.
Yeah, it's
hard to say.
It's something that they should really
Webb.
think about.
Yeah.
And that's where
we traded Matt
Very
Williams.
specific. Yeah, I am very specific about Webb and what it would take for me to do the deal, but also for Giants fans to accept a Logan Webb trade. You obviously the Matt Williams one was it pissed everyone off at the time.
Yeah.
And it worked out. It was a good trade at the end of the day. But
yeah,
Logan Webb, I get it. And Cam and I talked about it. I feel like he deserves to win in San Francisco, with what he means to the organization, being a local guy, the area, the fans, everything. I get it. He deserves. But is it really going to happen while he's here? And just looking at it realistically, yes, is he an ace? Maybe not in the traditional sense, but I'm not going to find 20 pitchers that are better than him. So if there's kind of when you talk about starting quarterbacks in the NFL, it's is this guy really a starter? And it's he's one of the 32 best quarterbacks. So yeah, he's a starter. So it's
for sure.
It's
Webb's
he's a number
great.
one,
Webb's
but
great.
in a perfect world, Webb is your number 2 because he just
yeah.
does not match up game in and game out against the other team's number 1.
No,
and that you would rather, in a 1-game series, you would rather have Snell starting.
100%. It's not even. I think
reality.
anyone on the Giants would too. I mean, especially
So.
if you asked, I think, and people were being honest and trying to be, if you wanted Logan Webb or Blake Snell to start one game, as a winner or take all, like how the old wild card thing used to be, back in the day. I think most people would pick Blake Snell. You put him in there, and then you throw in, maybe Hick or one of these other guys who people just can't hit. The problem with Webb, and the problem I had too with Tyler Rogers, and I love both of them too, but they pitch to contact, so they aren't these other teams' aces aren't pitching to contact. They're pitching they have stuff. It's stuff. They're pitch swing or miss. Paul Skeens not pitching to contact. All these aces are not. Logan Webb is one of the only aces in the league that pitches to contact. If you actually want to,
and that's why Tyler Rogers I don't like in the 9th.
Huh?
That's why I don't like Tyler Rogers in the 9th inning.
Oh yeah, it's a terrible idea.
I don't. You get every team's best at bats in the 9th inning. That's just how baseball has always been. And he's a pitch to contact guy. It's that is just a recipe for disaster. But I mean, I agree 100% with Webb. And Snell showed today exactly why you would pick Blake Snell in a game. Because any given day he can strike out 15 guys. So it's
15 guys in 6 innings.
It's insane.
His worst game he gave up his worst game in the last 4, he gave up 2 runs. It's it's insane. And I think, when's the last time Webb only gave up 2 runs? I can't remember that.
Well, he had a stretch where it seemed like every single outing he would go 7 innings, 2 earned runs.
Oh, for sure. Outing. It was when we were winning all those games.
He was just super consistent, and he's a reliable pitcher. He's sure. Very good. Like I said, he's a high-end number 2. He's a low-end number 1, a high-end number 2.
He'll always give you 7 innings, 6 to 8 innings, somewhere in there, mostly 7. But he's very good because he's not going to get blown up. He never goes like he's not going to get taken out of the game because like it's very rare where he's like 6 runs in 2 innings or something like that, which does happen to these ace kind of guys because if their stuff's not on, as you saw with the Blake Snell, as you'll see with a lot of these top end guys, they will like they just can't they like even Ray like who's a stuff guy too, and I mean he's not an ace. I think he's a number 2 as well, but when when their stuff's not on, they're just walking people. Whereas Webb doesn't have that problem. So it is great to have Webb in your rotation.
Yeah. He's just I value eating up innings. I value pitchers
100%.
That can still throw a bunch of innings. So because of that, Webb is always going to be super valuable to me personally.
For sure.
Robbie Ray has been pretty consistent. Like
he throws a lot of innings too, right?
Yeah, his last 3 healthy seasons,
200 plus, right?
No, but he was like 100. He was like 176, 193, and like 180 something.
Yeah, so about 200. Close.
So a good amount. Like he that's a good. It's something the Giants have lacked. I mean, so I would like that. Hicks will probably start next season as a starter. I don't think he's going to end up. I think the experiment will end in 2025.
Yeah. Oh, you do?
The season. But I am willing to give him the opportunity next season to see if once his arm, now that he's been a starter for most of the season, his arm's a little more built up. All right, let's see if you can get a little bit of the velocity and sustain it longer into the season and go a little deeper into some games. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But like, I am willing to give him going into next season. I don't know if it'll, hold up or not for him, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, like you said, trading Snell, I mean, that's what the rotation looks like. I saw you guys talk about Whisenhunt. What I've said in the past about Whisenhunt, and this is kind of where I stand as a whole in there. The Giants have so many left-handed pitching prospects. They're not going to end up with like 4 lefties in the rotation. We're not going to do that. As much as they're kind of the higher rated guys, like it's not happening. No team does that. Maybe it's worth it when you face the Dodgers, but
I was going to say if against the Dodgers in a which will not happen for a while because the Giants aren't headed to the playoffs. In a hypothetical playoff series against the Dodgers, that would be great because they have all those lefty power hitters.
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
it would be awesome.
Miller, the Shohei killer.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
If Eric Miller retires tomorrow, at least you can say Shohei Ohtani cannot hit me.
Yeah. Didn't I text you that? I was
like, you're the one who said I'm stealing your line. Exactly.
I was like, this dude could retire tomorrow and be like, I owned that guy. Yeah, you see that guy? I owned him.
He did too. Like, I don't even think he's gone a clean foul ball. Like not that I think. I know for sure. Everything is just it's crazy. Miller owns him. He owns him.
Hey, sometimes you just don't see a guy. It is what it is.
It is.
And good for Miller. It's a good guy to have.
Well, it'll be good. He's young, so it's good that we have him. And we'll have him for maybe if we get competitive here the next couple of years, that'll be a good thing to have in our back pocket.
Which I think they could. I think I've told people a lot that I'm higher on the Giants in 2025 than a lot of people, and even so, I'm still willing to sell. And I don't think selling impacts your ability to compete next season.
Yeah,
I really don't because the guys that we're talking about selling aren't really going to help you win next season anyway. So it's like, realistically speaking, or in a case of a guy like Chapman, you could just try and re-sign him in the offseason.
Which is what I would do.
Yeah. Which is what I would go that route. But
everyone does that to the Giants. I think it's our turn to pull that. No, it literally happens all the time. We'll get someone, then they'll go back to their old team, and I'm like, really? I'm like, why did we even trade? Yeah.
But where I stand on Whisenhunt, where I was kind of going down that rabbit hole, is Ray is going to opt in. If we're just being honest, Ray is going to opt in. So you're going to have left-handed Robbie Ray in the line,
which isn't a bad thing. I think he'll be good next year.
Yeah, it's good. I think he's going to be solid.
Yeah.
If he's healthy, he eats up innings, and he'll probably have a mid-3 ERA, and he'll be a solid pitcher.
Yeah, I'm looking at his career. Harrison, I mean, he's got good career numbers. I'll keep him. Yeah,
it'd be just fine. And then you have Harrison is going to be in the rotation, but then you look at you look at the left-handed pitching prospects in the Giants system, and you have guys like Whisenhunt. You have guys like Reggie Crawford, who he's probably going to be more of a reliever anyway. But you have Joe Whitman. we're not going to end up with 4 guys, especially if they have any interest in bringing Snell back. It's like, we're not going to have all of these guys in the rotation. So at some point, take your surplus of left-handed pitching prospects and trade them for someone good. And I like Wisenhunt. It's not that I think he stinks or anything. His changeup, I think the day he's in the major leagues, like the day he's like established in the major leagues, I do think his changeup is good enough that it might be a top 5 pitch in all of baseball. It's ridiculously good, but the stuff with it is just not. I mean, they're all work in progress. They might improve, they might not. We'll see. His command isn't great. I trust Joe Whitman's pitch mix developing and working at the major league level much more than I do Wisenhunt. That's just me. So that's where I would be willing to move Carson Wisenhunt, trying to make a big star. And yeah, Frederick, maybe he's a sweetener in the Orioles deal. Maybe he's a guy that, for you to get what you want out of their system, they might want a guy like that back. Now, granted, if I'm throwing Wisenhunt in there, it starts getting a little a little juggly almost, where it's like, okay, I'm probably going to want another one of those top prospects back. Like, I'm not going to just dump him in with Snell and Doval.
No, he's not a
get
thrower.
Norby and Mayo back. Like, I don't think that's that. It gets interesting. I haven't done like Dan does, where I pull up the trade analyzers. I just kind of.
I'm not okay. I love Dan, and he knows he's the best of baseball, one of the best. But I don't buy that trade analyzer. I'm not one of those. I think because I really think a lot of stuff too is dependent on what a team needs. You know what I mean? Like, he throws in certain players to certain, and I think it's not just, I don't know. I don't think it's a perfect. I get you not being with the trade machine.
Yeah.
I think more of contracts, what people need, what the going rate is at the time. Because I think just because someone's value is really high, like a Luis Matos, who has a good number on that graph, I don't think they do a 20 for 20 trade on a lot, because I think Matos is a high risk, even though he has high upside. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, this would be, that would be a good deal. I mean, because those are all 3 of those guys are higher rated than Norby by a good amount. I do think Norby is going to end up in the top. Well, I think he would have ended up in the top 100 in the offseason. He's not going to, because now he's up in Baltimore actually playing. Like, he's in the majors. But that's kind of the kind of deal I'd want back, is close to major league ready prospects, because that could potentially transform your lineup as soon as next season. So that's kind of where I'm at there. But I mean, so the Giants are just kind of an interesting situation. I think I told you this a little bit ago. Like, I really wish the Oakland series took place before the deadline, because
then you really have an idea.
Yeah, because I mean, if they win tomorrow and then they won both games against under, Oakland, right? Well, tomorrow will be if they beat Colorado and they finish the sweep, they'll be 2 games under, and they have a 2-game series against Oakland.
Even.
Yeah, so to me, it's like, had you ripped off 6 straight wins, even if it's against Colorado and Oakland, if you're as high on the pitching staff as you think and you drug yourself back to 500, there's at least a case to be made. I still wouldn't. I will make that clear. I don't believe the team is going to go on that run, but it would at least, you'd have a better idea. Or if you're, if you split and you're 2 games under, or if you lose both and, after beating Colorado, which would not surprise me, if they turned around and got smacked around by the A's. And for anybody that hasn't really watched the A's a ton this year, that team can hit.
No, they go crazy. Who do they have?
Their pitching stinks, but
they had that one dude they have that one guy with he's got 19 bombs, right? 20 bombs.
Is it Rooker or is it?
Brent, I think it's Brent Rooker, because I know the A's announcer who's she's
she's not good. It's painful.
Her voice is just really rough. I don't care.
She's gotten better. She's improved in the last 2 years, but I said she's improved, but it's still not good.
Her voice is just like someone will hit a bomb and she'll be like, "Oh, Brent Rooker, another home run," and it's like, "Oh my!"
She had a walk-off call.
You know what I mean? Huh?
She had a walk-off call a few years ago where
that's what I'm talking.
It was the worst thing I've ever heard, and I'm like,
Brent Rooker, 25 home runs. He's hitting 288.
Yeah, I mean, if the A's would trade him to the Giants, then
I'd love that.
But I don't think they. I'm not. I mean, I will say this: the Giants and A's have actually swung some deals before, and with the A's leaving the Bay Area, they might not care. So
yeah.
it might not be, like past situations where the teams didn't really want like the same guy playing really well across the bridge from them. So, maybe. Yeah, Fangraphs hates Norby. You know what? Connor Norby is major league ready, and he was hitting 297 with 16 homers and 13 stolen bases.
Wow,
Like a 908 OPS in AAA. And in the AAA where Baltimore, where their AAA affiliate plays, it's not like the PCL where everything's a launching pad. So like those are impressive numbers. It is AAA. You never know. He's got a couple. I think he has a pair of homers in the majors, but I would take. He's not like he's not a headlining prospect. He's just I would be interested in him as one of the guys coming back. I think he could be a good major leaguer. So obviously, Kobe Mayo is the guy that. Oh my god, dude! I would be so excited if they got that guy. If they somehow managed to pull it, I'd probably be like, "Yeah, let Farhan stay for another year just for pulling that one off." But yeah. I mean, how do you feel about this? We'll kind of circle back. How do you feel about this team's ability to compete the rest of this season? And what do you think? What do you think it's going to take wins wise to get in? Because right now, I think let me pull up the standings. I think the Mets are currently the third wild card team. Here we go. I have the app. There we go. The Braves are 7 games over. The Padres are 7 games over. They're tied for the first wild card spot, and then the Mets are half game back and 6 games over. So it's like, what do you think is going to be the win total kind of at the end of the year that gets in?
To the wild card? I think, honestly, if you're 2 games over 500, so that would be, 84 wins?
2 means you only just finished 82 and 80. 84 and 78 got in the last season.
4 games over 84 wins. 4 games over 500.
Because 6 over right now is the third.
No, I think people play each other a lot at the end of the year. I saw like in September, everyone's playing each other. Like even the Giants, so we could all of a sudden be like
100%.
Everyone's playing each other. So I don't know. I could be wrong. I'd say anywhere from 3 to 8 games would be my guess. I would say probably if I had to pick a number, I would say 5 over 500 will get it done. So
that's like 8. So like you think going 86 and 76?
Anywhere from 83 to 87. And I would think
I think 86 is like a sweet spot. I feel like that's about where it's trending because a lot of these teams are playing well now. But like you said, they're going to play each other.
They're playing each other, which makes it hard. So it's like you end up kind of. I mean, if someone what I saw last year is a lot of those teams like with the Giants, we started playing each other, and then the Giants just completely fell off the cliff. So it could be what happens is someone completely takes off in that group, like who's in the third wild card spot right now? Everyone's so bunched up; it changes like every 2 days.
Currently, it's the Mets. Braves, Padres, and Mets are the teams.
Trade. I mean, maybe the Mets could get hot. I mean, we'll really have to see. I don't know. For me though, I don't think the Giants make it here. Even if we make a trade, I don't know. I've been kind of like this team is so inconsistent. When you said I wouldn't be shocked if we lose both games to the A's. If you remember, that's what happened like last year when we started to fall off. That was the start of it. It was we lose to the A's, and I was like, dude, why did we lose to the A's? Like they were because they were really bad last year. This year they're just like they're middle. They're not too super bad. They're
the Giants last season, even when they fell apart in the second half, they got to the end of the season and they had a stretch where they played 2 games in Oakland, 3 games in Colorado, and then I think they were going to play 2 games in Arizona. And it was very clear that they needed to win like 4 of the games in Oakland and Colorado, and at least 1 in Arizona, preferably 2. It was like, okay, because they were still a little bit over 500. They were right in the heat of it, and it was like if you beat up on the bad teams and then handle your business against Arizona, you'd have had a chance. Like there was a good chance going down the wire, and they proceeded to win 1 game between the A's and the Rockies.
I remember
actually they might have gotten swept.
Yeah,
it was like, and then they got swept by Arizona.
And then it came out that everyone was playing cards in the clubhouse, and they were shooting dice, and like the Kapler had lost the locker room, and it was too much on social media. Oh yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. So, I've said for a while, like it's going to take. They're going to have to go on a winning streak. They're going to have to they're reaching to the point where if they really want to get in or have a chance late, like last season they had a 10-game winning streak. Now do they need 10? I don't know. Probably they don't necessarily need 10 in a row, but like they need to win like 7 or 8 in a row. Like they need to go on a run where they win
right now. We need to win the next 3 games.
Yeah, you need to beat Colorado, then you need to win the next 2. But even then, you're only at 500. It's like this team.
Who do we play after the A's? I haven't checked.
Oh, Giants schedule
Is it
beyond that.
Or no?
Well, their schedule was pretty favorable for a while. There are tough teams mixed in there, but
it's at the end. It gets really rough. September, I know it's like kind of it's a lot of tough teams we play. I know that.
So they play 2 against Oakland, and then they go on the road and they play 3 in Cincinnati, who's not playing great right now.
No, they're not. And we actually play well against Cincinnati for some reason.
Now it's hard in Cincinnati. The Giants have never been particularly great in Cincinnati. Same with Washington, who they play right after. So they go Cincinnati.
Washington owns us. We always get.
So they're going to have to figure out a way to win some of those, and then you go home for Detroit and 4 against Atlanta, who Atlanta is reeling right now.
Yeah.
And then you get 2 in Oakland, 3 at home against Chicago White Sox. So there is an option. Say that again.
Atlanta's reeling.
Yeah, they're down to like 7 games over. They're 3-7 in their last.
Maybe 10, you convince them to just take Conforto for like one of their bottom prospects. I think you never know. But Atlanta makes they got Soler. Their GM is pretty aggressive, I would say. Is the right terminology.
Wasn't it Anthropoulos or whatever? I think is their GM. I always forget who's pairing.
No, it's like Messiah or something. I don't know. I know he makes
who
a lot
Atlanta
of
should trade for?
Huh?
You know who is the perfect player for a team like the Braves?
Yes.
Lamont Wade Jr.
Oh, Lamont, you've been saying this. Yeah, you've been saying they need. No, yeah, that's not a bad take at all because he can play in the outfield, which they need someone in the outfield sometimes and left. He can play.
They have Olsen, so they don't need a first baseman.
No, but if they want to give Olsen a day off like next year, he can play first. He can play DH. He gets on base enough where he's not a bad DH. He's not necessarily your prototypical because they have Azuna, but they if they wanted I think he's Wade's versatile enough where I think that would be a good player for them to have.
Hey, Frederick. Frederick says some Braves fans on Twitter sure think they could use a first baseman. Hey, let them know I'll trade them Lamont Wade Jr. for Matt Olson right now.
100%. In a day.
I think every Giants fan would be like, here you go, dude.
Because Olsen next year will have a good year. You know what I mean? And it'll be worth keeping Olsen.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that's a perfect fit for him. On this team, his on-base skills doesn't really, it doesn't get best. The value of his getting on base is kind of wasted in San Francisco.
100%.
Going to a team like that where you get guys like Azuna, Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Sean Murphy, like you're hitting around all those guys. Like number one, he'll get better pitches to hit.
Acuna
number
next
two,
year.
if he gets on base, he's under contract for 1 more year. I'm not like an expert on the Braves system. There's certain guys that, sometimes I know of certain prospects on teams, but and I've done a lot of digging with like Baltimore, for instance, because they're a team their system is stacked and they're a team that can
so many.
So so I don't really know what they would give up, but I think you could get a guy probably right around the top 10, like at the bottom of like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range. I feel like you could probably get something like that for Wade because Wade is having a really good season and he'd be a good fit.
And last year he had
desperate.
And last year he had a good season too. I know he kind of fell off there at the end, but his overall season numbers were still impressive.
100%. So I think he'd be an excellent fit there. Yeah, I mean,
and he has his niche. He
hurts the Giants, but and his niche would be the value of that would be better utilized there. Yeah, where he has mashers around him. So because my thing is my biggest gripe with Wade has always been his best skill is getting on base, but he has no speed. So it's like that always hurts. you know.
Yeah. No, exactly.
And it's not that I dislike him as a player. It's just
he kind of reminds me of like a budget Luis Ariz, because Luis Ariz is really slow too. You know what or not really slow, not as slow as Wade. Wade is like crazy slow, but Luis Ariz isn't, super quick. Anyways, but he kind of reminds me of a budget Luis Ariz.
Yeah. So there are some guys they can move. I mean, they have an opportunity.
What do you think they end up doing, though, I guess? Because you said, you said at the beginning, you kind of just asked me, and you never really gave me what you thought. And we talked about what you would do and whatnot. But what do you think actually ends up happening here?
My gut is my gut is that they're going to make a move where they move one of the outfielders. Probably Conforto. They basically give him away, but maybe nobody wants him, so there's a chance they would move Yaz. I actually have said if I can only move one of the two, I'd rather move Yaz, and the only reason is because
you get rid of Conforto next year anyways.
Yeah, he's gonna be gone in the offseason, so you have both of them gone.
He'll bounce. He'll have because Conforto is such a streaky hitter. He'll have a little bit better. He'll have a stretch here. He'll get his numbers up to a respectable place, and he'll go leave. The Giants, I don't think the Giants would even offer to re-sign him, but he does not want to stay here. He doesn't like getting platooned. I know said it before. He feels like he can hit lefties. And actually the numbers do show that he can hit lefties. He has like reverse splits. So anyways, but so I think he definitely leaves. So I agree with you. If we're going to move one of them, I've been saying that. Not even that like.
And he has more value too.
I think Yaz is better right now. And I think, Conforto's going to leave anyways, so it opens up two spots. You know what I mean? So it's like, and you can get somebody for Yaz right now because he has 9 triples on the season. That somehow he hit 3 triples this week. I don't know what he's on. But
go ahead and pencil in a loss for tomorrow if Hicks is pitching.
Oh God.
I did the breakdown of Hicks, and he's had one good start basically in the last 2 months, and it was like June 17th. It was so long ago.
I don't know why they're still starting him. I mean, he said himself, multiple times that he's feeling tired. The other game, not day, when he was pitching, they came out and because he was like, so I don't know. I think it's kind of going good, even if regardless of what we think. I think we're risking injury at this point, in my opinion.
Yeah. Protect his arm.
We have this guy for
100%. Yeah. So, yeah. One move that's as far as kids. Yeah, I mean, probably. That's where it's tough. I mean, there's what they should do, and then there's what they will do, and it's just like that's the reality. I mean, I would give Farhan so much credit. And there's a lot of people that would give Farhan a lot of credit. Where if he went out and he moved off of and he got some good prospect hauls back or decent prospects back. And if he did move, Chapman, Rogers, Snell, Doval, if he just really tried to turn it over and be like, you know what, we're going to go young for the rest of the season. But there's a lot of us that can see the pieces are there to be a competitive team next season. Now they're going to have to do work in the offseason. They're going to have to figure it out. But you feel pretty confident in guys like Elliot Ramos, Tyler Fitzgerald. If Logan Webb was still here, you're going to feel good about Bailey. Thank you, Bailey. Yep. Wisely, you feel like he's a major league player.
Good, definitely utility player, definitely on the roster.
Yeah, Jung-Hoo Lee is going to be back next season. You have Webb, Birdsong, Harrison, Ray
Soler,
in the starting rotation. Yeah, Soler is going to be here. And hey,
you never know though with Soler. You get next year. You can get with Soler.
He's
so streaky, and we have him for another 3 years. I promise you, he is gonna break that Barry Bonds thing. He's gonna hit 30 one of these. If we don't trade him, one of these 3 years, because that's how he is. If you look at his career, this is what he does. He'll have a couple good years, then he's just terrible for 3, and then he'll just come back. And so, don't be shocked if Soler next season just complete. And that's why I'm with you that
he hits 35 next season. I wouldn't be shocked.
Oh no, not at all.
Not even a little bit.
Not at all.
Like,
No, he would only have 80 RBIs though. I bet money it's 100 under.
yeah.
He is not. He'll never be an RBI guy. I mean, even if you look at his last season, he had 37 home runs and
It's
70.
getting better than it was earlier in the year.
Yes.
I will give him
Yes.
credit. Like he has been giving better at bats with runners in scoring position. The last
Well, he's taking
month or
pitches
two,
too, which is nice.
but it's still not good.
Yeah, and he's changed his approach. You can tell he's taking pitches. He took 10 walks or 12 walks in the last week.
Grant, I'm going to come back to this one because this is still kind of on the topic we're talking about. If Farhan sells big, that tells me he has a job next year. If it makes one move trying to get better, he is on the hot seat losing his job. It's kind of a weird thing because his actions are going to say a lot as to at least how he views his job security, unless ownership is just like hell you're buying, dude. Like if he just stands pat, maybe they're like, yeah, we're not taking on any more money. We don't all know about that part. But it is going to be interesting. Now, the one thing that's going around all of a sudden is you're hearing guys like Kuiper, Kruko, Fleming all go on these on KNVR or 95.7 or any of the radio stations, and they're kind of bashing the state of the team right now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Former players like JT Snow. And there are rumors out there where Farhan has kind of buried the relationships with past generations, so to speak. Guys like Will Clark and Snow and a lot of these former players that don't feel as kind of welcome in the organization now. So I don't think he's got a lot of allies outside of probably ownership. And if Posey were to take over or kind of get in Johnson's ear and be like, dude, it's time to make a move, then yeah, he might just be gone. But my gut tells me that he's going to be back another season. Now, I think next season it's going to be.
No.
That's my gut.
No.
I don't want him
back another year,
but I do. I don't think. Something tells me that they're gonna bite on his built-in excuse that he made that was self-inflicted, but his built-in excuse of basically going, oh well, we had all these pitchers injured and they'll be back, and if we can they just didn't work out and Snell didn't have a spring, whatever. He's gonna use these excuses, and the reality is it was all self-inflicted. He put together the roster. He's the one that made the team reliant on Alex Cobb and Robbie Ray coming back from injuries. Is what it is.
Well, and I also think with one thing I know we've talked about before, with Farhan, the way he's constructed the team, and why I also think I really hope he gets fired this year, unless we somehow make the wild card. Then I'm like, all right, if he doesn't get fired, I understand. Yeah. Even though I want him fired, I understand the excuse. But in my opinion, I have two things I'll say on this. You can't only make the playoffs with the top 5 franchise in any league, whether that's the MLB, the NBA or the NFL. If the Giants aren't like this middly, city or Midwest city. This franchise can make moves, and I just think to only have made the playoffs 1 out of 7 years, if he doesn't make the playoffs this year, you just gotta get fired. It doesn't matter what if you have excuses or not. It's at the end of the day, sports, and what I love about sports is it's really a performance-based thing, and it's wins and losses. It's a win. If you win, but by 1 point or 1 run or whatever it is in whatever sport, you still won. You know what I mean? If you lose and you didn't make the play, you lost. It doesn't really matter if what happened. You should have done something. You know what I mean? So I think for me, that's where I'm at with Farhan. Is I don't dislike him as a lot of people really, really hate Farhan. I'm not at that point with him. I just think he's shown no success, and that's why he needs to leave, in my opinion. So,
yeah, I just, to me, it comes down to it's as simple as he's been here 5.5 years, and has he done enough to deserve to keep his job?
Oh, so this is year 6. My bad. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's year 6. I mean, at this point, he's had full off season. It's almost 6 years, but yeah.
Yeah.
The season's not over, so I'll call it 5.5 for now. And has he done enough to deserve to keep the job? And right now, I think that answer is no. Now, as long as he has the job, as I said earlier, as long as he has the job, there's always things that he could do to change my opinion on it. If he sold off a bunch of guys, sold Chapman, embraced the youth, and managed to get sold Snell, and somehow got Kobe Mayo and some pretty decent prospects,
I think he could.
I would give him credit. I would give him credit. And if some of these young players do well, if a Casey Schmidt suddenly does well down the stretch, and Mayo comes up and mashes. Like there are things the team could do that I would give him massive credit and be like, yeah, I would love to, I think he deserves to stick around. But as of right now, I don't think he does. But that said, my gut tells me he is going to be back next season. As much as it pains me to say that, my gut tells me he's going to be back now. I think next season it is going to be like a ultimatum of you better make the playoffs. And
one question on Mayo, and this is the last thing I'll say about Mayo, just because I also love Mayo. I'm also with you on that. And we also both like Bo, which I like. We have similar thoughts on those two players. But anyways, the thing with, do you think a Doval for Mayo trade straight up can get it done or no?
Doval for Mayo? I don't think it does. If Doval was pitching like he did last season,
we would need to get
more. I think the Giants would have to get more.
What are we talking? Like a Wade Meckler, or are we talking like a legit player?
Probably like a legit player. I mean, it could be a prospect. It could be like a lower level.
Right?
I would not move Birdsong. I wouldn't either. I'm just saying,
what type of level player with Doval would you have to like get? Because I would give Doval in a heartbeat for Kobe Mayo, and make it happen. Who would be
because of the season he's having? I would not be surprised if you had to turn around and flip like a Wisenhunt with him.
Dang. You really think people really? Because I don't know. You don't think there's any?
Mayo's like top 15 prospect in baseball, and he's like literally on the doorstep. The guy in his last
Doval last year was a top closer though. So I mean, this year he isn't, but last year top? He was definitely a top 5.
Oh, if he was throwing like he was last season right now, where he had like led the league in saves and he had like a 2 ERA.
He was up there
like if he was throwing like that, I think straight up they could get the deal done.
Okay.
With the way his season's gone, I don't think. I think he could net you a top 100 prospect in a trade. It'd probably be on like the lower level of that, or like the lower end of top 100. That's my opinion. But you're Kobe Mayo. You're talking about a top 15 prospect in baseball.
I know. Doval used to be super elite, so I just was thinking maybe the Orioles are like, change of scenery. Because if you actually look at some of his, some of the numbers, a lot of his ERA.
What history tells us. Huh? I said this is definitely what history tells us. Sorry, I was just let me get back over to Grant. He actually asked me a little bit. My thoughts on Trevor McDonald tonight, his future. I wouldn't be shocked if Trevor McDonald ends up being Ricky and I kind of talked about this. We wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being kind of a trade piece. He is on the 40 man. I think he's got good stuff. I think his future is likely going to be in the bullpen though. Mid to high 90s fastball, really, really good slider with it. But they are letting him stretch out and try and be a starter. So, and he threw 5 1/3 today. I think he gave up 1 or 2 hits and 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts. Looked good. First start in Sacramento. His stuff's really good. I didn't know. I clicked on the wrong one. What's up, Chardall?
Chardall.
Yeah, but
Chardall's in here. I'm not on the chat, so I haven't been seeing it.
Yeah. Hey, you know what, Mark? This is totally fair. That Brian Wilson and Rod Beck was similar. They do the high wire act. My issue.
I didn't like Doval, Wilson.
Yeah, my issue with Doval, and this is where I struggle with him, is, and it's not that I think he doesn't care. I think didn't he take like a bat to the he went to town.
He broke a cooler or something. He broke a cooler
with a bat. Yeah. So I don't think he doesn't care. So I'm not gonna say he does not care, but he has kind of a very nonchalant way of going going about his business. He has not figured out the pitch clock at all. He's not going to figure out the pitch clock. He does not hold runners on base when they get on.
He can't defend either.
Yeah, he walks way too many guys
for a closer, especially.
Yeah, his pitch shapes have gotten worse. So it's like you give me a closer that walks a ton of guys, doesn't hold them on when they get on. So they often can just run at will. And he struggles with the pitch clock, so he has poor command and also kind of gives away balls on occasion. Or he's kind of like, you can tell it like mentally affects him. And then sometimes he's just so nonchalant about the way it never feels like he has any sense of urgency out there.
Never.
So it's it's not that I dislike the guy. And I say all these things, and it's like I don't hate him. Like I like Camilo Doval. I wish he would trust his stuff more. Like, dude, you throw 102 miles an hour. Throw a fastball and throw it by him. Like they
put it by, just put it at the letters. Put
so it frustrates me, but to me it's a little more than just he's going through a slump. Like it's
100%.
just the whole way about how he goes about his business.
I was trying to trade him last season. I was at a game live, and it was a firework night, so I think it was around and sometime in July. And I've been watching him, and he kept blowing all these shit. And he lost this game, and it was such a good game. And I was like, you know what? It's time to trade Doval. And since then, I've been on it. And now
it's the emotional. Just want this guy gone.
Yeah, it was super emotional. And then, but then it was kind of perfect because it worked. And I hate this, but it actually ended up like coming true. So I was like, see, I told you guys. I was like,
that's funny. Yeah.
It's kind of unfortunate. I wish I didn't speak it into existence. But I was like, he gives me Brian Wilson vibes. I kept saying to my friend, and he was like, you know what? You're right. Like, this is the same kind of thing. You'll walk someone, and then, like, the difference, though, with Wilson was you could tell he didn't have that nonchalant attitude. He cared, like, too much. He'd come out there and be, like, flipping out. He was, like, too amped up,
Yeah, 2010, Brian Wilson was like arguably the best closer in baseball that season. So,
for sure he was.
Yeah. And Doval was
the beard. He had his
last season. So.
He had his own thing. He had the fear of the beard. Like everyone would get those, like those fake beards, and it was pretty good. He was pretty. Yeah, it was good.
I think Doval's my biggest thing for Doval is like, I guess to simplify how I feel about him, I think Doval needs to learn how to be a professional.
Yeah,
I think that's really what it is. Like.
Some
of the stuff where, like, yes, it's not ideal for him to go into a game where they're up 8 runs. Like, I get it. Or, like, there's one, I think, it might have been against the Reds or something like that, where they had to pull him because he couldn't get 3 outs.
Oh, yeah.
They were up by, Angels, like, 8 runs or something. Or the Angels or something like that.
Yeah, we were up, like, 11-1, and he gave up, like...
I get it. Yeah. I get the argument against pitching him in those situations. I understand, but also... You can't just let him only throw like every 2 weeks. Like last season, he was getting a ton of work because they had a lot of close games that they were coming. That he was coming in to save games. He led the league in saves. This season, it's like he has not had that many save opportunities. He's not had that many opportunities to go in there. So they've been kind of forced to use him sometimes where it's like the dude needs work, and like sometimes you just got to be a professional. Go out there, get 3 outs, and be done. And he struggles with that. It's very clear. So and this is fair. Like he does better with more consistent work, and that's part of why they have to put him out there because it's like in those situations. So he can get a ton of work there.
Trade him to a competitive team who's in close games.
And you know what? The other part of this is how much value does a closer have on a crappy team?
None. Like literally little to none. You don't need a good closer on it. That's why the A's are looking, and they're mad that Mason Miller broke his thumb, and they were gonna move Mason Miller because you don't really need a good. It's great that they have this electric closer, but if you're not a competitive team, it doesn't really matter. You're not trying to win a lot of games. You'd almost rather have a closer by committee because you don't want to be good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and we're not in that case. And I also think the thing I will say with Doval, and like I said with Webb, but even way more with Doval, this is way more true. We have a lot of guys, in my opinion, who could take his role. If you didn't move Taylor Rogers, I like Taylor Rogers in the closing role. He used to close. Not Tyler. I'm talking Taylor. I think he could do it fine. I think Ryan Walker would be
serviceable.
My first choice. That's who I would
on a bad team, it's Walker could grow into it. I think Randy eventually will be a closer.
I think Randy's my first
down the road,
actually,
not yet, but
not yet.
I think Ryan Walker can do it now, and I think Ryan Walker can do a serviceable job.
Well,
and you're not a good team, so it's
He's the one that usually comes in to save Doval. That's who they usually they bring in when if he hasn't gotten pitched already. That's usually who they bring in. They bring in Walker, or they'll bring in Tyler Rogers. That makes no sense. Yeah. Them trying to use, and you said this earlier, them trying to use Tyler Rogers in the 9th just never has made sense to me because we got Taylor, his brother, who I think is more, a more effective swing and miss pitcher. I mean, I know for a fact, and the stats say that too. So, and he's got 2.3 ERA this year, Taylor.
Taylor's having a good. Yeah, I mean, they're both having really good seasons.
No, they're both great.
Yeah,
I just like Taylor.
they're
more
just
the
Taylor
way
is a
he
better
rolls.
fit in the ninth than 100%. Yeah, Frederick's right. I mean, Randy has the best stuff in the bullpen.
100%.
He has to figure some stuff out. He's not
young,
ready to
though,
close
right?
games
23.
Yeah, he's super young. So that's why I think eventually he's going to be a closer. Like I
like
remember
him more
when
than Doval. I mean, I like his attitude more than Doval. Let me rephrase. He seems to come in and he seems to really have like good energy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
he's struggled a little recently, but he also I felt like it was a little overblown. I remember when everyone's like, this guy's been struggling a ton, and then I looked at his last 10 outings, and it was like, and then he gave up a run after that the next outing. But like I looked at his last 10 outings, and it was like he had given up a run in only like 3 of them. And
what's his ERA?
It's
only like 4.3, right?
I'd have to look. I don't know what it is off
it's
the top of my head.
It's not much higher than Doval. They're about the same, aren't they?
It's better than Luke Jackson. I can tell you that.
Luke Jackson's awful. That's all I know.
Freaking guy,
if Farhan does nothing else, please, please, I beg you, Farhan, if you are watching this.
Farhan DFA Luke Jackson.
Luke Jackson.
I think the whole team, all the fans would celebrate.
Dude, everyone hates him. Everyone, even the announcers, like who are the hugest, Fleming's a huge homer. He does not like Luke Jackson. He'll come in and he's like, "Oh God," he doesn't say "Oh God," but you can in his words, you can tell that he's very worried. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No. Frederick, 100%. Like this is where, and I know Frederick. Like I know you're not a fan of his fastball. I don't think the fastball is as big of an issue because of the fact of how good his secondary pitches are. I know you've mentioned like he should only throw his fastball 25% of the time. Realistically, for starters, they're not going to do that because it's too hard on their arms to throw their secondary pitches that frequently. If they're wanting to, go 5, 6, 7 innings, they're going to have that fastball rate be a little higher than that. But I don't think it's a problem just because at the end of the day, 96 to 98, and he showed it today a few times where he just threw it by guys a couple times. So they can't just sit on their secondary when he throws 96 or 98. Now, granted, I would love for him to, develop a 2-seam that he can hopefully throw, with a little bit of sink, a little downward bite. I would love if he could throw that because if he can still throw that 96, 97, like that's going to be a damn good pitch for him with the other stuff. And at that point, you might be looking at one of the better pitchers in baseball if he figures that one out. But yeah. Oh, yeah, his fastball was good today. I mean, he painted a couple on the outside that you could tell like the hitter had no chance. And
I like his vote. I also think, with Birdsong, he's someone who I could see adding, I don't know. You know more about the prospects than I do, but I think if he added a sinker or a cutter, it would, add a lot more movement to that. And he could still, get that, I think, up to 96, 95, 96. And, I think that because I know a lot of people have complained. They're like, oh, his fastball is so straight. It's the straightest fastball I've seen. Like, Giants. I don't know why a lot of Giants fans like to hate on the young guys. I'll never get that because, like, these are our prospects and they're our players. Like, we should want them to be good. You know what I mean? So, anyways, but I think, if he adds a sinker or even a little bit of movement just to that fastball, I think, in my opinion, he's got ace potential.
Yeah, George, I agree. I don't think Randy's ready yet. That's kind of what I was saying. Like, I think he's eventually going to be a closer. I felt the same way when I saw Brian Wilson pitch before he became the closer, and I felt the same way when I watched Doval pitch before he eventually became the closer, where I was like, this guy has closer stuff. Eventually, he's probably going to be the closer. They just, like those guys at the time, like they weren't ready, and eventually they got there. I think Randy will get there at some point. It's just not now. And I'd rather, if you trade Doval, I'd rather a guy like Ryan Walker be the closer for the intermediate.
Don't you think Walker could do it? I do. I think he's been really good in those late innings. I mean, I think
he's had a couple rough outings recently, but I think
given
that's
us some
more
bombs,
to do with him being worn out.
It's been the home runs though, right? That's been getting him.
Cool. Well, and you know what? This is the whole thing, and I'm not here to like crap on analytics. Like I'm not like I do like analytics as a tool. But like,
with the eye test,
with the eye test, to me, I always like the eye test. But this is the thing where, like, I do not understand how Farhan has not figured this out. The whole opener thing, doing them so much last season, doing them a bunch early this season. I get it in the sense that they go, oh, well, the numbers say that it's beneficial and that it's a good chance to win. It's like, great. You're giving yourself the best chance to win that day. What happens in
the next
July
game.
and August when your bullpen is done?
Exhausted,
and that's what we're getting to again. It's happening again because they ran all these bullpen games for a chunk of the season, and now here we are in July, and our bullpen just looks gassed all the time. And they did a good job today. They held it together for the most part today.
Well,
Obviously,
Miller,
sucks,
a lot of the guys they used today aren't as gassed. I mean, Miller hasn't been. I mean, well, it was a doubleheader, but so the first game, and the second game, I think those, And what do you think about, real quick, because no one really talks about it, what do you think about Miller? Because I actually think he's got a lot of upside. Not as a closer, but I like him a lot as in the bullpen going forward.
I like Miller. I was high on him coming into the season. He's got a lot.
He was up and down, but he's been really consistent the last 3 months.
Yeah. No, Frederick, I understand why. Whose fault is that, though? Who put the roster together?
You traded for Robbie Ray, who was literally hurt, and you knew.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually liked that trade. Like, that was one of the better Farhan trades. I know we were talking earlier what moves has he made. That was his best trade. Was getting rid of Haniger, who is having a much worse season than Conforto, who everyone hates. It's like imagine having Haniger and Conforto in the corners this season. I don't think Ramos ever would have played. Do you? I don't think Ramos would have had his opportunity. They would have put Yaz in.
If they kept all those other guys, if they'd ever moved Haniger. Yeah, no, it was a good trade. Like, I'm not, but like this is like the reality.
Oh,
they
no,
went into the
I'm
season.
with you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
He knew. Farhan knew going in what he was getting himself into. You signed one dude who had no spring training, and you traded for another Cy Young who was not expected. Everyone knew until after the All-Star break, and you kept an old pitcher who had a really bad history of back issues and other issues. And
he was coming off hip surgery. Yeah,
let's do the
breakdown. Let's do the breakdown. There is one injury that took place that I will not get on Farhan for. That is, you just said it, the Beck injury. That's the one that I've said has hurt the team more than anything. But let's do the breakdown right here. Farhan came into the season and had Logan Webb, a guy and then Snell, who was not going to have a spring training, and it was going to need time. And even when he is healthy, he doesn't eat up innings. He had Keaton Wynn, who has had elbow issues for 2 seasons now. Like, this isn't a new thing. He's had a history of elbow problems. We had Harrison missed like 2 or 3 starts. I don't even really count that. And they were going to have to
and that was on
anyway.
That was like the weight thing that I don't know if it existed or not. Yeah. It may have been just him needing a break.
It was an excuse for them to let him miss a few starts.
That's what I think, because everyone kept saying, like, how do you do that even?
Yeah. And then you have Hicks, who's a converted reliever going back to being a starter, and he had never thrown more than 105 innings in a professional season because he did that in the minors before he became. So, so like these are the issues. Is like he put together a roster. Oh yeah, and then Cobb and Ray. I mean, obviously you brought them up. Where Cobb, Ray, you knew we weren't getting until after the All-Star break.
You knew that.
And Cobb was a 36-year-old coming on off hip surgery, where the most optimistic timelines were that he was going to be back in June. So it's like,
are we gonna see Cobb this year?
Farhan probably, but to me he shouldn't be more than a bulk guy at this point. But like, it's just all of these things. And yes, was this when the majority of them were happening? Well, yeah. I mean, is that when the majority of the bullpen were happening?
Come on.
Yes, that is when they were happening earlier in the season. But again, you knew for a fact of your starters, Ray and Cobb were not going to be available.
Yep.
The Beck one, obviously, that's the one I told you. I'll give leeway on that. Ray and Cobb weren't going to be available, and you were going to be relying on a converted a bunch of guys that can't get more than 5 innings in Harrison, Wynn,
Snell,
Hicks, and then Snell. And then Snell wasn't.
He's a 6-inning guy. He's in his entire career. He's only he's in his entire career. He's only recorded 3 outs after the 7th inning. Yeah. So it's like you knew even if you thought Snell was going to go 6 innings every game. You knew he was never going to be this like, Logan Webb 8 inning, 7 inning kind of guy or, anyways. Yeah, 100%.
I just, to me, like, yes, you don't think that it was going to happen all before, but the reality is he went into the season with 4 healthy starters, and 3 of those 4 healthy and ready starters. He entered the season with that.
Yeah.
And of those 4, 3 of them had never thrown more than like 110 innings in a season.
Yeah.
Like, that was a absolute recipe for disaster from day one. So yes, like,
and also
yes,
what I'll
like
say.
I was just gonna say yes, he didn't expect this all to happen, but also to not think that it was not likely to end up with a bunch of bullpen games, I think is a little bit of ignorance.
Yeah, and then also with some of this stuff, like, I like what this guy says. Phlox, he says should have signed Sonny Gray. I also think there was other arms you could have gotten that were out there who were a little bit, lower risk.
I said Marcus Stroman would have been a good pick.
That is who I was. Oh my god, I'm so upset that we didn't sign him because
especially the deal he got.
He was like hinting he wanted to go to the Giants. He's like, and he kept saying that he really liked pitching in the Bay, and he was like, he would have signed here. He said that. He literally said in an interview he would sign with the Giants. And I was like, why don't we get Stroman? And he's, another always very consistent. He's another like Webb type of pitcher, I think Webb's better than Stroman, but pitches to contact, double play guy.
Back up.
Goes a lot of innings, and anyways.
Yeah, the Sonny Gray one, what I will say is Sonny Gray signed very early, and he made it clear that he wanted to be closer to home, and I think he lives in the Midwest somewhere. It might be like Nashville or something like that.
Yeah.
So he made it clear he wanted to be closer to home, so I don't think the Giants could have actually signed him.
What about Dylan Cease, that trade?
The Dylan Cease trade, I mean, it's a lot to get. No,
too much.
They gave up good amount. Yeah, I would not have.
Okay. He's been good though.
Yeah.
It ended up.
Yeah, he has.
Out. Yeah,
he's a good pitcher.
He reminds me a lot of him and what is it? The Dodgers guy. Why do I always forget his name? Who did we just face the other day? He went like 5 innings. He throws 100. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now. He's on the Dodgers pitcher, right-handed. Got like a 3.5 ERA. I don't know why.
I'm trying to think of who actually has a 3.5. Oh, like who they went after, or are you talking about?
No, the Dodgers. He's on their team right now. It's the right. I'm blanking on his name. It's late. I'm forgetting.
Oh, Glasnow.
Yeah, Glasnow. And Cease kind of remind me of Snell too.
I didn't like the lack of innings.
Yeah, so what I will say with that is, I think you either get Snell, Glasnow, or Cease, and Cease obviously is trade. So it's really just Glasnow or Snell. I think, I don't know. I actually think the Snell signing was fine. I think that was one I'll give Farhan a little, leeway on that one too. I think he probably
it's going to be a good signing. I think at the end, I just 100%. Don't credit for I just don't give him the excuse for like all the bullpen games and the lack of foresight for our bullpen being worn out again in July, and be like, oh, well, we didn't know. And it's like, dude, yeah, we did. Like a lot of us, myself included, I literally put out a video that was like my biggest questions coming into the season. I said, will the team be able to eat up enough innings? And here's the problem. And I pointed to all of those guys because I was like, this is a big issue. So yes, like there are a lot of us that knew that this could and likely would happen. I'm going to touch on George's comment here. I believe going forward, the Giants have the makings of the best starting pitching. It has top end talent. Can throw innings, pitch in high intensity, big games ready, bullpen is deep as healthy. Yeah, this is why right here, this is part of why a lot of people have said like they need to tear it down to the studs and go down to the foundation and like blow the whole thing up and like, or change everything and get rid of everyone. And it's like, I don't. I think 2024 is kind of a wash. I've said I think they're built up for 2025. And the pitching is the biggest reason why. So I think the staff will be set up to actually be hopefully healthy next season with guys that can actually throw some innings. Guys like Harrison's going to be built up more. Birdsong's going to be built up more. Hopefully Webb gives you more of what you're used to. Robbie Ray has been known to eat up innings when healthy. We'll see with Hicks. He'll be built up more. I don't know if he'll really last. Maybe he ends up permanently moving to the pen. We'll see.
Yeah.
but I think the team is better equipped. Maybe they try and bring Snell back. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm cool either way. If we don't trade Snell, I would be fine. I know we were talking about this on Twitter and we kind of disagreed here. I would be cool with keeping Snell. I'm not opposed to keeping Snell. I think if you don't trade Webb and you keep Snell and you keep Ray, you do have, a really, like you said, then you don't have to really worry about rebuilding and you're not pushing yourself super far back because you have 3 possible number 1 and number 2 pitchers. And I think, so I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think it'd have to be at the right price and, not that many years. I would only want to extend Snell like another 2 years max,
Controlled demolition.
Controlled demolition.
Yeah. Hey, it's like I've said, guys. I've said trade the guys that aren't going to be here anyway past this season. Trade a couple guys like Chapman or Snell or whatever that are probably going to opt out. And if you don't like what you see out of the guys that are performing, like the young guys that are playing for them, there's nothing stopping you from trying to re-sign them in the offseason.
I'm totally down with moving Chapman because I actually like Casey and I think Chapman's bat's really overrated. So.
And you know what Chapman he's on this hot streak and you look down and his numbers are basically exactly what he always does.
Yeah.
I mean he has, what is he right now? He's got like a 2 or 750 and he's hitting like 2. Yeah, it's literally like his career numbers.
Yeah.
He's exactly what he is. He's as advertised. He gets a lot of extra base hits. He strikes out a ton. He's not great with runners in scoring position. He's probably going to hit 20 something home runs, like low 20s. He'll hit probably nearly 40 doubles. I mean, he's going to be like 35 to 40.
He's going to be low on the RBIs this season, though. He's only on pace for
55 plus extra base hits.
Yep.
And the only thing he's done this season that has shocked me is he has 10 stolen bases.
That has been actually
literally exactly what he normally does.
Remember we were talking about that on Twitter earlier in the year, or not earlier in the year, but a few months ago, and he had 5, and then now he's already up to 9. So he's doubled his career high, right? His career high before was 4, right, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, Frederick. Yeah, he 100% is. Him and Yaz are both excellent base runners.
Good base runners.
Yaz got Casey an RBI and saved him from an at bat yesterday when Casey didn't really hit a ball that was deep enough, but he read well that the second baseman was going to be in a very bad position to try and make a throw, and he took home. And it's
what I'll say about Chapman, Yaz, and Conforto, who I want to trade all 3 of them, and I like all 3 of them in different orders. For me, I like Conforto the most. It doesn't really matter. And I'm cool with trading all. They're all legit baseball players. Like they all do play the game right. I like their approaches in different ways. I don't like Chapman's approach at the plate as much, and Yaz because they have a lot of more swing and miss stuff. But I think they're better. But in their own way, all 3 of those guys, I want to trade them all. But I do think they're all good players. If we were in a different position, we had a Juan Soto, we actually signed Correa, or we had a couple of these, bigger names, I would want these guys. I would want a Matt Chapman. I would want a Michael Conforto. I would want a Lamont Wade. Some of these guys we're talking about trading. It's not that I don't like these players. I mean, I didn't like Slater. I think Wilmer's really bad. I don't like Jackson. The guy, there definitely are players that are not, I think, meant to. Yeah, but those aren't those guys. I think with those 3, they're just unfortunately, they're not in the position they need to be in. I think it'd also be better for them to be on different teams, especially for a guy like Chapman and Conforto, who I think in the right position, and is lower in the lineup with less pressure. I think they'd perform better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think when you have better, when you have more balance and you have better protection throughout the lineup, a lot of these guys would be better players overall.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw this up here. Yeah, and guys, I'm not poo-pooing on Chapman. I think I said in the offseason, I just didn't want him to be signed to a long-term deal. I was totally fine with him on a short-term deal. I still feel that way on a couple-year deal. I have no issue with him. I don't believe in handing a 32-year-old when you're a team like the Giants or in the position they're in. I don't believe in handing a 32-year-old a 4 or 5 year deal.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change on that realistically in the next couple months because and I don't want this team to be in a spot where in 3 years they're finally contending for a World Series and we're stuck with a 34-year-old with a 680 OPS. I just don't.
And that is where Chapman is going. That is 100%.
That's the issue.
He's going to be eventually diminished to just a really good defender who hits some doubles. Like, you know, a lot of those home runs in a few years are not going to be going over the fence. You know what I mean? And I think, you know, Chapman scares me for a long-term deal. That's not
at least he at least scares me if you're not going to figure out what you have in Casey Schmidt.
Yeah.
That's the part that kills me, because if Casey Schmidt goes to another team, like, I'm just going to warn everyone, if Casey Schmidt goes to another team and he is good, you guys are going to hear from me a lot on it. You will hear it every time I watch Chapman and Casey's like doing really good things somewhere else. I'm going to be like, yeah, great, Chapman's awesome, but that guy's making $800K. Like, come on. Like, that's the problem. And you know what? If you give Casey 55 games and he stinks, by all means, sign Chapman to an extent, or go sign Chapman back in the offseason. I feel fine with that. At that point, you had actually done you had gotten your internal evaluation on the guy before making the move. So
100%.
That's Ron, as Ron said, for anybody that's watching, if you're checking it out here on YouTube, if you're not already, if you enjoy the content, I don't always do these lives every day. Like, my wife's out of town, so I've had extra time this week to be able to do these. I usually do them like once a week on either a Thursday or Friday. A lot of times you'll see Dan, who has been sick all week. He hasn't been able to hop on. He said he doesn't have place. He said he's upgrading his cave, is what he liked to tell me.
That's hilarious.
And then you'll see a lot of Ricky. I joke that Ricky's kind of my resident minor league expert. He watches about as much as me. And then Cameron yesterday was a lot of fun. And then Josh, like,
Cameron was fun. He was funny.
Getting all you guys to jump on here for a day. It's always great. I like getting new people on here. So appreciate you guys. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But let's get back into the chat. We'll do a few more before we get running. I'm just going to kind of run through these. Problem, the Giants have too many free swingers. They don't adjust with runners in scoring position. They do not play situational days with balls on the coaches too. Coaches have to stress situational thing. For anybody that read the tweet I sent out today, after the Giants, I think it was in the first inning too. And after the first game, they went like 0 for a billion with runners in scoring position up until I think Bailey finally knocked in somebody late in the game. I had a base hit with guys on second and third, but they could not get people in from third base with less than 2 outs. And what I tweeted out was, this is literally an issue every year, and somehow it feels like they get worse at it every season. And maybe it's just recency bias where I'm like, how does this team still suck with guys on third and less than 2 outs? But this happens every season. It is so irritating. It is literally baseball 101. And they have so many, like George said, you have so many free swingers. You have so many guys that have a lot of swing and miss in the lineup in general. And this is where, like, yes, I get Matos is struggling. I get the issues with Bichette. I get, like, all those kinds of guys. But
they can put in the outfield.
You need guys like that in your lineup for 100%. Balance. Like, that's so necessary. Yeah. So it's just frustrating. Like, I'm not going to go too far on that, but yeah.
100%. Has elite bat speed. Yeah, because he's.
And you know what? This is actually improving. Yeah, this is. I think Casey Schmidt at his absolute best, if he hit everything on his potential, and you never know with guys, but in my opinion, if he were to reach what his potential is, he'd be a Gold Glove finalist third baseman, might win 1 or 2. He'd be of that caliber, because at third base he is very, very, very good. Like that. Yeah. That's what his projection was. His comp when he got drafted was Matt Chapman.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. No, it was Matt. And he also had the hardest thrown ball in the infield last year. Besides,
he's got a cannon. Yeah, I mean, they talk about. I laugh because if you watch River Cats games when Casey Schmidt's playing third base, and like the play today where like you see Chapman, field one and he throws it off his right foot on the run. I'm like, I see Casey Schmidt make that throw literally all the time in Sacramento, and you'll hear Kruk and Kite go like, yeah, there's not many people that can make that throw. And I'm like, there's literally one in your system right now that can make that throw.
Yeah.
Like, I watch him. But if he hit his best or reached his potential, I think he'd be around a 20 to 25 home run guy, a guy that can hit about 270 or 280. He's never going to walk a ton. Like, the on base would probably be right around 340 or so. And, the OPS as a whole, probably mid to higher. Like, it would look a lot similar to what Chapman's numbers look like, honestly.
Yeah, he's a lot cheaper.
So, but he's younger and he's cheaper.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Now, does he do that? I don't know. I mean, you're not going to know until you let him play, and you just got to let him play every day and see what happens.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, I also think, you move, like you said, you have someone like Schmidt, you find out what you got, and then you can always re-sign Chapman. You know what I mean? You throw him next year, 4 for 100, or if you really want Matt Chapman, you can make it happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Frederick here, this is my thing with Schmidt. This might be the case, totally legit. And I think last season it was very clear that he was not ready. They rushed him up through AA, AAA, and they shoved him on the roster. And I get it. A lot of fans were calling for him. I was calling for him to get up and get to play every day, and clearly he was too early for him. And if he looked like he did last season when I was watching him in Sacramento or San Francisco this season, then I would have a lot stronger opinion the other direction, that I'm like, this guy is just not a player, and he's got too much that he needs to work on. But that said, what I have seen in Sacramento is a guy that actually is taking, he's worked very hard on his play discipline. He doesn't chase nearly as much, takes a lot more pitches. His pitch recognition has improved. I'm not going to sit here and say he's got elite discipline now and elite pitch recognition. He doesn't, but both of those have improved significantly. And he still drives balls in the zone. Like, he's still really good at barreling up balls that are in the zone. So that's his thing. I feel like he's improved a ton where he deserves a shot. He obviously got that kind of quick shot earlier in the year back in May. And it was very clear that he was pressing. Like, you could just see, like, he reverted back to what he did last season, where all of a sudden he swung at everything.
Yeah.
And then he got sent down, and then he got that, like, little brief call up where he was up for, like, the series against New York and the Arizona series and stuff like that. And the plate discipline, if you went back and rewatched those at bats, it looks a lot like what you see in Sacramento. He wasn't chasing a ton. He was getting pitches to hit, and he was driving the pitches to hit. And his power is playing a lot more this season. I think he has like 15 or 16 home runs in professional ball across the AAA and major leagues. So I think he deserves an opportunity to play every day to see what you have out of him. And if he stinks, I'll be the first to sit here and be like, all right, he had a shot. Like, as long as they let him play every day. So that's my spiel. That's what I'll say about Casey Schmidt. He's 1 for 1 with a sac fly and a triple since they called him up. So if you look at his last 2 call-ups that he's been up, he's
looked a lot. I think
20.
he looks a lot better, honestly. He looks a lot more like relaxed. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
he looks like he's just playing his game now instead of
trying to hit
trying
everything
to
out of the yard.
Yeah. Okay, but he's not better at let's see. Okay. Counterpoint, George. The team sucks. Like what? It doesn't matter if he's not better than him today. Is he going to be better than him next year, the following year, 3 years? He's 25. He'll be 26 on opening day next season. Like, his birthday's in March. Matt Chapman will be 32. And his play the last 4 years has been a massive step down from what it was for the previous 3 or 4 years. And if you look at Chapman historically, it's like, okay, or you look at player performance over time, usually this is about the time where it starts to fall off. So is Matt Chapman definitively going to be a better team in the next 2 years? And do you really think they're going to be a World Series contender in the next 2 years? Because if they're not going to be a World Series contender, it makes no sense to go with the guy that isn't going to be as good when you are a contender.
In my opinion, Matt Chapman's just over. Like, I like Chapman, but again, I just think he's overpaid for this team, for the team that we have constructed. Again, it goes back to the Conforto, Yaz, Chapman, and those are the 3 guys I'll say right now.
Yeah.
Want to move them all, but I think they would be good on other people, all 3 of them.
Yeah, and I just think you can get something for Chapman, and
for sure.
You can get a good prospect for Chapman. And as I keep saying, if Casey's not good, if he doesn't show enough, you can try, and nothing is stopping you from trying to re-sign Matt Chapman in 2 months. But wouldn't you want to know what you have internally before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, with this WAR thing, Frederick, I see you talking about WAR. I'm not a big WAR guy because I think WAR is super, super biased towards. So I think Chapman's great, but I think I would want to see what his offensive batting WAR has been this season, and I'm not as high on.
He's always a little above average.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's above average, but I'm not as big on the whole WAR number as a whole because in my opinion, it emphasizes defense a little too much. You've had guys who have had really impactful seasons who will have, one WAR, negative WAR. I mean, and if you don't have them in the lineup, the team doesn't win. So I just think WAR is in my opinion, pretty heavily impacted on the defensive side, which I do think is really important. But I also think people need to remember all the times that Matt Chapman came up and lost his games because he couldn't hit the ball in the outfield with one out and guy on second and third. Because I remember a lot of those times. And it seems like everyone else forgets. So and I like Chapman again. I just think WAR is a little bit doesn't take into those accounts at all. So
yeah, we kind of touched on this. It was a ways earlier, but I mean, I think Encarnacion should be up over Derek Hill. Absolutely.
For sure.
There's no reason that he should be down compared to Derek Hill. I mean, I don't, the WAR statistic, it's a good kind of idea of the value a player provides.
Yeah.
I don't use it as gospel. That's all.
No, it's definitely a tool. I mean, if someone's WAR is really, like, for example, this season, Estrada, Cody and I were talking about Estrada's having a really bad year. Then I go and look, and Estrada has like -5 WAR, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But if you go and look at someone like Chapman, he's got I think he has 3.3 WAR, and he's almost has as much as Elliot Ramos. And I think anyone who's been watching Giants games can tell you that Elliot Ramos has been a lot more impactful to us winning. They have not had
situational stuff matters. And yes, Chapman's actually made some really good defensive plays that have won them games. So I will give him credit on that too.
Yeah, like that Mets
the one
game
in New York. The Mets game, I flat out said is the greatest play I've ever seen that ended a game in baseball.
That was also a good play by was that Wade who picked
both
it
ends? Yeah, it was Wade that picked it. Yeah, great play. That was a phenomenal play. And I like Chapman. There are videos of me saying back before the season where I was, because at the time I was like, I would not sign him, but that was because I was like, I'm not signing him to a long-term deal. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
I flat out said back then, if you're just talking about who's going to be the best player on the team or who's a better third baseman for the next 2 years, I said it's definitively Chapman. He's going to be more valuable than Schmidt is. But the idea is, do you want the declining player or do you want the guy that's hopefully on an upwards trajectory when you're entering, hopefully, your contention window? And that's where I feel strongly that I would rather give the shot to Schmidt before I fork out a big deal to Chapman.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I mean,
this is why
he is bad in center, but Ramos, I think anybody watching Ramos, he's not a center fielder.
Then that's why WAR is a bad stat, because it's the team's putting Ramos in center, so now his WAR is going down because they're putting him in a bad position because the team has decided. Hold it against him at all. Yeah, and that's why, again, Weaver, that's why WAR is it's a biased stat in certain situations, because it's again, Ramos's WAR would be higher if he hadn't been playing center this year and had been staying in right, because if you look at his right field outfield statistics, he was above, wasn't it 7 outs above average or something like that? I don't know, I'd have to look.
Something he was way above. He was raking the corners.
I remember him and Conforto, I liked them on the corners because no one was running on us because they both have good arms. I remember Ramos
Conforto doesn't move, but he's got a good arm.
He doesn't move, but he has I think he has 8 putouts this year. He has a lot, and Ramos has had 3 in right field. So what I would say is, I think once you see Ramos go back into one of the corner positions, you'll like his defense a lot more, Frederick.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. WAR, the statistic is correct. The reason I don't like only using it is because it's very clear to anybody watching that his number is getting drugged down due to misuse and not.
That's all I'm saying.
That's
not his fault. That's not, he doesn't get to tell himself.
Yeah, context matters. Perfect. Exactly. Context matters, and situational stuff matters. You watch the where am I going with this?
We didn't say he was.
You watch like Ramos. Yeah, you watch all the big hits Ramos has had, the games that he's had where he's been the offense, all these different things. And it's like, it is very clear. Like, if it wasn't for Elliot Ramos, this team would be like 15 plus games under 500 right now.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Then that number
at
is
least
not
10.
high enough if we're going true value.
10.
Yeah.
I don't really think we said that.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned, like, are you going to want a declining player? Like, I'm talking about if you give him a 4 or 5 year contract, which is probably what you're going to have to give him. His level of play, if you look at his numbers year in and year out, he is a declining player compared to what he was in 2017, 18, 19, 20. His last 4 years have been a clear drop off. His OPS is down like 100 points, but he's not like he's maintaining. I think I even said earlier, like his numbers this season are like exactly what you would expect out of Matt Chapman. Yeah. They're right on what you would expect. But he's going to be 32 on opening day. So he's probably next season, he'll probably be pretty good still. I would guess. And even the following year, probably going to be good. But like, do you want to give this guy a 3, 4, 5 year contract? Like that's the concern, because age is undefeated typically, unless your name is Tom Brady. Like at some point, his play is going to decline. And do you want the guy when your window is not really right now? That's where I'm going at with this. I'm not saying he stinks. I'm not saying Schmidt is better today. I'm saying that Schmidt has done enough in my eyes to deserve a look. And if he doesn't run with it, then go sign Matt Chapman in the offseason. Go back. Because he's going to follow money. He's not going to look at the Giants and be like, oh, no, this team traded me, so I'm not going to go sign there. It's like if they put the money in front of him, like that's where he's signing.
No, and he can kind of just tell them too, like, or not him. The team can say, hey, we have to sell off this season. We really hope we can add you back in the off season. You know what I mean? Like,
hey, Frederick, I'll have to do some research on this one, but I saw what was getting thrown out there before he got called up, and I've seen at least. I'd be willing to bet you I could find like at least 2 or 3 games where he was the entire offense, and multiple games where he hit like late home runs to either tie or take the lead. So I'd be willing to bet it's a lot worse. Plus a lot of other big hits.
And also, I think what you got to keep in mind too is that was when Ramos first got called up. He was so good, and it was really important because he switched places for Lee, and then like Conforto, who was at this point was playing really well. He had 7 of his 10 home runs in like the first month and a half of the season. He then goes down. Ramos places, so it was important then because our outfield was in shambles too. Like we needed and power bats because we lost Lee, and just hitting. I don't know. I thought it wasn't just what the numbers say. His impact was really important because of all the players we lost at that time too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Not to mention the impacts of like not even that doesn't even account for when you get a guy like doing what Ramos did, like the production he was giving in that stretch, it elevates the lineup as a whole. Like it's not even just when he's hit, like everybody gets more. Yeah, and hey, like that's great. I'm glad that they think it's only 1 extra win or whatever, Frederick. I don't buy it. I watched this team. This team was absolutely dead in the water when he showed up. He changed the trajectory of the season at the time. Like that was, yes, Matos had a great week, but like he literally carried the team.
He also was kind of like the new, like everyone really clinged to Lee at the beginning of the year, and it was good that he was like I said, when Lee and Conforto went down, they kind of went down around the same time. It was a good replacement because not only were Lee wasn't providing that much, but Conforto was. He replaced Lee as like the idol, like the centerpiece on the team that everyone could gravitate towards because it was Lee, and then Lee got hurt. So
yeah. I mean the whole point is that it's not measurable like that. That's the problem. Like I believe it would be more, and really, I mean, I guess you said 4 or 5. I guess if it's 4 or 5 wins, that's 10 games.
10 games under
relative to 500. So yeah, I mean, totally. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fair. If 4 or 5 more wins, he's probably been worth. But like, that's the thing. Like, if he's been worth 4 or 5 and the WAR tells you that he's only worth 2.5, it's like, yeah, no, he's definitely been worth more than what they've given him credit for.
Oh, for sure.
Like
and again, that's because of the defense. I guarantee you, if he had an equal defense or positive, which he would have been right, his WAR would be a lot higher.
100%. My joke all season has been he's the only guy that I won't get up to take a piss during his at bat.
Yep.
Like he's the only guy on the team where I'm like, yeah, I'm making sure I'm going to be. I like that one.
I like his at bats. I like Wade's at bats, and I like. I guess that's really it. It's Conforto when he's on. I like when Conforto's hitting well. He can be really enjoyable to watch. But when he's cold, it's really hard to watch.
He just can't even make contact right now. And he's usually a guy that he's right around league average strikeout.
Yeah.
Conforto's not like he's not a super high. He's usually like the low 20s. But right now,
this year it's higher, and his walk rate is way down. He's hit a lot. He's already surpassed his double, amount for the last 2 seasons, which is good. So he's, harder con. But I think with him, I almost think he's trying to hit the ball. He's almost pulling the Matt Chapman thing, where he's like trying to swing too hard. Whereas Conforto before, I think, and you see where he's like pressing too hard now. He's almost having that like Soler approach, where he's like trying to hit everything.
Yeah. Yeah, Chapman's bats are either great or just the worst. Yeah, that's about as accurate.
That's like the they're similar. They're very similar.
Chapman can absolutely carry a lineup for a couple weeks at a time. Same with Soler. Like those are the kind of streaky guys that can carry a lineup for a week or two. I mean, Chapman did it when they had that stretch in Pittsburgh and New York, where he like was hitting a home run. It felt like every day, and he was just going crazy at the plate, but then he gets cold and he just can't.
I remember what was it? It was I remember Chapman and Conforto at one point were hot together, and I was like, we might actually do it. And this was, I think, during the Braves I was like, okay, we got something. And then and that's the problem with the Giants too. I think someone said earlier in the chat, there's too many guys with too much swing and miss, and then not just that, we have too many streaky hitters like Soler. Super streaky. Chapman, streaky. Conforto has become a super streaky player now. So it's like, it's not convincing.
And even, guys are streaky in baseball. Like, that's just the reality.
For sure.
I just think they just don't have I know, like, the term I hear a lot, like, you heard it. I think Dowd called it this a bunch of times. It drove me nuts. But he called them the aircraft carrier players, the guys that elevate the whole team. And, Ramos has played like that guy for many portions of this season. Chapman can do it for like a week. But, Ramos is the one guy that's like pretty consistently like done that for while he's been
I keep thinking he's going to fall off, and then he doesn't. He just will have it. He'll go through like a little stretch. Yeah. He'll drop down to like 283, 288, something like that. And then it just goes back to closer to 300. And I'm like, man, this guy's really legit. It's been good to see.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at like, yes, he's not, producing 80% better than league average like he was for like 2.5 months, but he's not, his version of falling off is still really good. Like, that's the thing. Like, he's still giving a lot of production right now. His average keeps, it'll go down. Like you said, it'll drop down a bit. And then he like pops it back up to 290 something. And the thing that the reason I have so much confidence in Ramos now compared to before is a lot of guys can get hot and then the league adjusts. And then you see them just, and because the league's going to figure you out. They're going to figure out how to attack. Ramos has come in, lit the world on fire, league adjusted. He, numbers kind of went like that. He figured it out, adjusted back, numbers went back up. League made an adjustment again. Numbers started to fall off. He adjusts back, they climb back up. He's playing the game that all good baseball players have to do, and that's when they adjust and you have to adjust back, and it's just constant your whole career. And the fact that he's been able to withstand a couple of these big slumps and come out of them and come out the other side, like that's
really good.
That gives you so much confidence in his staying power and that he's going to be a good one. Like, exactly. They figured him out all the way down to a better than league average bat. Like, if he's going to be, and I think he could be a 130 OPS guy. Like, if he's a 30% better than league average bat, that's a guy that you can put in the middle of your order. Yeah. Like, that's not a 6 or 7 hitter. That's an actual 3 or 5 hitter,
Yeah, I like
So.
Ramos. I think for me, where I would put him, like actually, like if we had a legit lineup, I would like him in the 5 hole. That's where I would put him. Like if we had, a Juan Soto and another, I don't know who would, a few other guys. I like him in the 5 or the 3. I like him either. But yeah, he's definitely a middle of the order bat. He's very. I never liked him in this. What'd you like him about? Did you like him at the 2nd hole? I never liked him there.
There's always an argument that like your best hitter should be hitting 2nd. I've always felt like your best hitter should hit 3rd. I think that's more of like an analytics thing. They've kind of adjusted that in more recent years.
But growing up, they always told me 3rd. Your best hitter hits 3rd because they hit and they always hit and they're gonna get almost as many at bats as the 1st and 2nd hitter, but they're more. I don't know. I always thought it was the 3rd hitter.
Yeah. This is killing me with Grant. This is hilarious. Jackson isn't playing a game of adjustments. I think Jackson's playing a game of adjustments with his own release point every time he throws. He's not even worried about what the hitters are doing. That guy can't figure out where he's throwing.
I still don't get why Farhan signed him to be the setup man, and especially at the dollars he did, because and this is even before he was with us, he has more career blown saves than saves, right? Like, it's insane.
I think Rogers is really close to that, too.
No, and exactly. And then it's like, why are you putting these guys – why are you putting these sorry. Okay. Yeah, why are you putting these guys in these situations? It's like, oh, my God. It's like the numbers you're like an analytical guy, right? Look at the numbers. Because I'll look when I'm like, why is this guy still on the team? I'll go in like on Baseball Reference or – on StatCast or on Fangraphs or whatever and go do my research. And I'm like, okay, why is this guy in this position at all? This dude, like, the numbers tell you that this doesn't work. And that's also the one thing I'll say with the platoon. And I know Conforto had a bad year and Wisely. But, like, Wisely and Conforto, the numbers say they can hit lefties fine this year. So it's like, I don't know. There's just a lot of things with Farhan where I'm like, the analytics don't really add up to what his plan is. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I thought he was an analytical guy.
Yeah, I agree with you, George. Best hitter bats 3rd, 2nd should be the best bat control guy. I agree.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my I want a guy that can get on base with speed leading off. I get it really only matters in the 1st inning, especially in the National League nowadays, now that there's the DH all the time. But I do like having a guy because I want your team to be set up to try and put a run across the board in the 1st. Like, that's why it matters to me. So I want a guy that can get on with speed. I want a guy that can get him over or in. I want some thump behind it. Like, that's how I like it.
But does it really matter only in the 1st inning? Because if you have a clean and if someone's going through the order, then that's not true. You know what I mean? Like, because there's times where that's happened to the Giants where it's like it's just clean through the order and then. So I don't know. I still think it's always 3rd.
With how this team is, there are times where they go. The other guy goes perfect for 3 innings.
For 4 innings, and then it's the top of the 4th. It's the first person again. And it's like,
So I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, Luke Jackson, though, I just, dude, wait, he fails every test imaginable for why he should be on the team. Like, he fails the eye test, he fails the stats test, he fails literally every test.
And he's overpaid. He's paid a lot of money.
But. And that's probably why he's still here, because of the money. So,
now they put him in the the sacrificial lamb? Is that the way you call it? Or
yes, that's what I call it. I said sometimes guys have to be the sacrificial lamb. Where
that's Luke Jackson every time now. They just throw him out and like when there's like we've already lost.
They did it to Randy. They did it to Randy a few times.
That was messed up, and I don't like the way they treat Randy. They overuse him and abuse Randy.
They'd pull him into a game where they were down by like 10. He'd go out there, give them 2 scoreless innings, and then he'd give up like 1 or 2 in the 3rd inning. And it's like the guy shouldn't even be out there still. Like,
no, I know. They literally pitch him. They pitch him like a bulk inning guy, like Sean, dude. And they did the same thing to Jelly for a while too. And then they realized to be fair, I honestly was
Jelly's more stretched out though than Randy.
So. No, for sure. And I honestly, to be fair with this Jelly thing, I honestly was convinced for a while that Jelly could start for us and throw like 5 innings. I was like convinced.
It would have been better than
I was convinced he had a really good stretch. And his numbers have gone back down, so they're looking good again. But Jelly had a really dominant stretch there, for the middle part of the year.
He's kind of sandwiched a really good early stretch little bit later was all right. But yeah, he was pretty bad in the middle. Yeah, his cutter's not great. It was funny, they were hyping up his cutter when he first came up because they were like, yeah, it's a new weapon against lefties. And then the league figured it out.
Oh, no,
It's not been that good.
I think I like him on the team though as a bulk inning guy for Jelly. I mean, where are you at with Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate him. Like, I'm not trying to run him off the team or anything. He's fine. You know, he's okay. You know,
I'd have him take Jackson's role. That's where I'm at. Is like
I 100%.
Yeah,
Jackson I'd dump before Gully.
Yeah.
So absolutely. But yeah, God, it's already like 12:15. We've been on for 2.5 hours. So we're gonna wrap this one up though. I appreciate everybody hopping on and sticking it out for those. I mean, Frederick, God, you've been here like this entire time. So
thank you, Frederick. Appreciate you, man.
For those that haven't, again, appreciate all you. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you can. It's helping with growth. We're like 3 or 4 away from 600 now.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, so we're creeping up there. I don't know when the next live will be. There's a chance I might do one on Monday. I'll have to talk to the wife on that one. I might get like Dan and Ricky on, and we might do like a trade deadline one and talk about how the Giants didn't do anything, because that's probably going to be the case. I'm trying to reverse jinx this. But you know, we'll talk a little bit. Actually, I think the deadline technically is Tuesday. But we might do something. And I always do our minor league videos, so you know, Ricky and I might hop on. I like to try and do the off day stuff. So appreciate all you guys. We'll hopefully be back soon. Otherwise, we'll definitely do something Thursday or Friday or something next week. And then I've got I usually do hop on with the NorCal boys on Wednesday nights. So you'll probably see me there as well. So see you everyone, and we'll catch you next time.